before we have the approval of the agenda, because we may need to add an item to that.
Okay, Mr. Potts.
It's been brought to my attention, not by anyone in here or anyone in this county, really, but what is our responsibility if a child gets sick and the parents claim that they got sick from the school?
Well, that's a great question, Mr. Potts. I mean, there is an assumption of risk that every family takes when they send their child to school. There's an assumption of risk when you go play out on the park. Our risk prevention strategies is, do we have good procedures in place? Are we wearing masks? Are we keeping distancing? Are we following guidelines that adhere to it? And the answer, we think, is yes. And if you look at our numbers, we feel confident in those numbers. So I don't think there's risk. That risk is you know, there is an assumption of risk when you get on a bus. There's an assumption of risk when you went to school in the past. There's an assumption of risk anytime you send your child to school. This is of course, you do have mandated attendance, but we did give 2 options this year back in the summer. So that's my stance on it.
And the 2 options happen, either attend or you do it virtually,
Virtually,
right?
of course,
Okay.
virtual option was there in the summer, and of course, as Delta variant increased, that became, we filled up, but that's and there is a homebound option for those, for kids as well, so there is that, so, yes.
When you say we filled up in virtual option, what exactly are you saying? Because I thought we had enough teachers to take care of whatever number of kids that came along that wanted to go virtual.
That's a fair question, a good question, and so you get to a point where you, like say in elementary school, where you get to, say you have kindergarten or first graders, and you get to a point where your sections are filled up, okay? 20 to 1, 18 to 1, or whatever, then you have 2 or 3 extras that are left over, or 3 or 4 extras. So at that point, you're making a decision, looking at your teacher roster and saying, do I move a teacher to teach 3 or 4 kids and drive up the numbers face to face, or do I leave the teacher there? And that's the point you get to. That's the tipping point you get to. It's no different than sections that you have in the past. Sometimes sections don't make, and you bump it to the next semester. It's the same exercise. Okay. But when you offer 2, sometimes there's more conflict, especially as we got into August and so forth. Now we will open virtual back up for registration, I think, sometime soon for the 2nd semester. So there'll be some new registrations that are coming up. I'll be glad to get Ms. Hastings' report on virtual next month.
Yeah, last question. So really, the first question was based on the fact that we are doing what CDC has said that we ought to be doing as far as help protecting our children and staff workers at this school, or at this county, rather.
Yeah, I mean, I think and Tina will be here for the health report, but I think we have over 80% of our employees that are vaccinated. Okay. If you go visit our schools, students are complying with masks, our employees are complying with it. Our numbers have been pretty good. I saw a couple schools in the state that had outbreaks where they had to shut down whole schools. We have not gotten to that point yet. We hope we do not. I'm not about to get overly optimistic and say we got this thing licked or anything like that. No. But I think we're being careful. We're limiting visitors into our buildings. The only visitors that can come in are through appointment. So we're trying our best to maintain. We have seating charts in every one of our schools on our buses. And those are some of the mitigation strategies that we've tried to comply with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So move.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Next item is the consent agenda. You're right. Okay, all right. Next item is the consent agenda, and I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. Next item is the citizens' comments. During this particular time, we'd ask that you come to the podium here and state your name again, and there will be 3 minutes for you to speak. The first person is Ms. Beatles. Did I pronounce that name correctly? Yes, ma'am. The spotlight is on you.
Can I borrow somebody? Anybody come up here with me? Just one person.
Sure,
Doesn't matter one.
sure.
Can I get a volunteer? Doesn't matter who. Y'all go right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm new to this. You can just slide that behind your mask and just hold it. It's gonna beep, but don't pull it out. All right. Can everyone hear me okay? I am
Yes.
very nervous, so excuse me for this. All right, so my name is Natasha Beatles. I'm a mother to 5 children in this county. I'm going to start by saying that I assume everyone up here is elected into their position. When we elect these people into this position, we trust them with our children's education, their well-being, and their best interests. However, given the recent events, I do not feel like our children's best interests and their well-being has been a priority. With the spread of COVID affecting our community right now, no one is safe, vaccinated or not. Therefore, any exposed individual should be required to quarantine and be required to get tested given the number of cases that have been asymptomatic. My problem is that every time I question this with the school, I just get told basically what you just said, is that we're complying with the CDC and we're doing what they tell us. But that's actually not true. If you look on the CDC website, it does recommend that vaccinated persons do wait 3 to 5 days and get tested to be sure that they don't have the virus, even if they don't have symptoms. Let's see here. The vaccine does not fully protect an individual from contracting or spreading the virus, so why do the vaccinated people not have to adhere to the same rules as everyone else? And again, I don't want it to be passed to the CDC or the governor, because again, we expect you to protect our children, and at some point, we got to use common sense if we're going to get outside of this pandemic. Let's see. And of course, it wouldn't hurt if we asked the vaccinated students to at least stay home, even if you wanted to give them a lesser sentence, just stay home for 3 days, get tested, come back with a negative test, and then all is well, because they're still getting the virus as well. Also, I want to address the poor communication that we're receiving from the school. We're being told that our children have to quarantine because they had close contact, but we're not told when, where, how, or anything helpful to go along with that. The majority of these students never even test positive for the virus. However, they're being made to miss 10 to 20 days of school because of it, and not to mention the parents that have to miss work to accommodate these 10 to 20 days that they have to miss from school. It's not a top secret. It's not CIA information. All we're asking for is to give us a little something to go on, because we are the parents. These are our children. You know, did they get it from a bus? Did they get it from their classroom? How close was this contact? No names have to be given to do that. I'm one of many parents right now that I've talked to who is beyond frustrated with the way the school is handling the situation. And everything that I have addressed right here does not violate anything that the CDC is requiring, to add a few extra rules, to ask a few extra things of the students and the parents when people are exposed. This is all on you. You can make this decision, and I think parents in the county would feel a lot safer about sending their kids to school if we could do that. Next. Done? I took up 2 minutes on. He actually got over 1,000 on this one, which at home when I tested it on my son, he actually got over 6,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide wearing his mask. I don't know how many of you parents are dealing with this at home with your kids, but my kids, since going back to school, have come home every day with headaches, sick, nausea, not feeling good, and just a complete loss of energy. So if y'all really think that the masks are protecting your children, you need to think again. Look up things like hypercapnia and things like that to come from an exposure of carbon dioxide, and tell me if you think it's just COVID that's making everybody sick.
Thank you, Ms. Beatles.
Thank you.
Ms. Needles. Ms. Needles? Ms. Needles, I'm gonna break protocol, because what you just brought up is some things I've been hearing also. And it's not just you. Don't think that it's happening in this county. That's happening all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
We've been told one thing, and then something else happens. And I'm somewhat disturbed as the fact that you got to come here to get a civil answer about a simple question, especially when it comes to this contract contact tracing, or why I got to spend 14 days in isolation because my kids may or may not have been exposed to COVID. Maybe today, this evening, we can answer that to the point why we can and can't do that, because I'm tired of waiting for you guys to have to wait and find out an answer to help protect your kids.
Oh, yeah.
So you no more upset than I am. It's, the only difference is your kids, but see, your kids are my kids, whether you know that or not. I got 5,000 of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I ain't got 5, thank God. I got 5,000. So my concern is about all of them.
Well, when those 5,000 get sent home, you're not the one staying home with them.
I
We
know,
are.
that's the killer part. That's the killer part. But we need to make the right decision to do that. And in some cases, we can and cannot do that. But hopefully when Ms. Slayback comes up, we can get some answers as to why we cannot tell you who, we can't tell you who.
No, I would never ask who. It's just a general answer.
If you did, we wouldn't tell you. But we can't tell you who, but we can tell you at what time that took place. And to me, that seems extremely reasonable to be told that your child may have come in contact with that while on the bus or while crossing the yard. Or
Oh, yeah, but we're not even getting that. We're just being
that's,
told,
that's
yeah,
what
they're
you're
exposed,
saying.
and
That's
that's it.
And can she not be told that, Doc?
I mean, I'm gonna let Tina talk about contact tracing in just a little bit. I mean, we every one of our folks have been contact traced, and I think we do a good job with it. She'll answer that thoroughly when she does her health.
But can she be told? Can that parent right there be told that I got to isolate my kids because?
Can I tell you the question I asked and wasn't answered? I have 2 different kids, 2 different ages, and 2 different grades, and I was called and told that both of them have to quarantine. No answer as to why, how 2 different kids got it. They wouldn't answer the question. They just said, just know that they have to quarantine, they can't come back. And I said, even with a negative test, and they said, even with a negative test, they cannot come back.
I'll let Tina answer, but I will say this. I'm certain what we're saying is that through contact tracing, your child has been identified as having contact with somebody over 15 minutes that had a positive test, and that's how we do it. I mean, we have been trained by the Virginia Department of Health, and Ms. Slaybaugh has just done the best she can, and so have our nurses to do the best they can in very difficult circumstances, and we care deeply, and most of our nurses have children in our school too, and so we're trying our best to do it the right way. In contact tracing, we can't disclose who it was with, and if you disclose sometimes on a classroom or a bus, you are disclosing exactly who you automatically know who it is, and so that's a violation of student rights as well. I will let her answer the question here, and she will answer it better than I will.
Okay.
And Doc, that was my question too, because I can't see why you can't be told that your kid got in contact with a kid on the bus.
Exactly.
We got 25 kids on the bus.
Well, my kids are the last ones on the bus and the first ones off. They're on the bus less than 5 minutes. So
Right.
if that's where it happened, then they still
Right.
were exempt from the code that would make them have to quarantine.
Right, but
And they wear masks and they sit with each
and
other.
I-
So again,
you
I
know,
don't understand that.
but don't feel bad, 'cause I don't understand it and I don't like it. And I've spoke my objection to a lot of stuff CDC has come out with, and that's one of them right there. That's one of them. I do what I'm supposed to do to help protect you people's kids, which definitely is my job. There's no question about that. But I sometimes common sense, like you said, has to kick in.
At some point it does.
Because
If the kids can play sports without a mask and do all of this and it's fine, then,
if I got 25 kids on the bus, how the devil I'm gonna know who kid got sick?
yeah, and we
All
were
I know
close
is
to
that we
them.
got 25 kids. Well, we got 200 kids at the school. Everybody knows about know everybody at school.
Well, they were talking about social distancing and all you saw the first 4 days of school was all these Snapchats of the kids being shoulder to shoulder in the hallway.
Listen, I want to say one thing. We're not guessing on contact tracing. We have seating charts
Right.
for every single kid, every single classroom. Now is that it here too? I doubt it's here to 100%, but I think we do the best we can with seating charts on buses and classrooms. Even when we switch classrooms, we have seating charts now. So we do contact tracing based on that. Okay, all right. And then you take it from there and you identify. In the hallways, when you have class exchange, it's less than 5 minutes at the high school. In the middle school, when they have classroom, they've done it through 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. So you don't have big groups going together at one time. At elementary schools, they're not changing all at the same time at one time. It's smaller groups. So you're able to keep them in cohorts pretty well. And I mean, I do look at our numbers compared to the other one. I'm not about to get overconfident in our numbers. I'm not, okay? But our numbers look good compared to Campbell, Pennsylvania, and others. I mean, we are holding serve the best we can with it.
And it can be better. I
Sure it
honestly
can.
feel it can be
Absolutely.
better.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna give y'all
Thank-
these, just maybe on your later free time you can read. I only made 5 copies, but this actually talks about carbon dioxide exposure. It also is several information I pulled from official websites that talks about research done on antibodies and the people vaccinated.
You got a
Thank you, Ms.
carbon
Beatles.
dioxide- You got a monitor at your house?
Carbon dioxide
Yeah,
monitor?
that was one you just had right there with,
Yeah, I keep 2 of them at home.
you got 2 of them at home?
Yeah, I
Do you have
actually did a video
a,
where I text my son with it, and his got over 6,000 in less than 2 minutes. Just sitting there playing a game, that's all he did.
where, at school,
At home.
at home?
Wearing he had a loose fitting mask on, and the same thing happened.
I'm gonna say this, don't get mad. The mask don't protect you from carbon monoxide. It's not gonna do that.
No, not carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide.
Carbon was the same, all the carbon, all the mono and the diol, it's gonna do the same thing for all of them. It's not gonna protect you. You're gonna have to have a filtered mask to protect you from that.
No, it's not to protect you from carbon dioxide. The whole point of it is if you're breathing out
Well,
oxygen, you're breathing back in carbon
Right, but
dioxide.
I'm saying the mask is not gonna protect that.
No, the mask is blocking, the mask is blocking your oxygen out,
Oh.
so it's breathing in carbon dioxide. It's what the point of that
Okay,
experiment was.
okay.
Thank you, Ms. Beatles.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Our next person is Jamie Brown. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Dr. Lindenberg, Ms. Hall, as well as all the other board members. I come standing before you today as a concerned parent. I am and was raised by an educator and within education. Okay, I've been surrounded by administration, teachers, custodial workers, bus drivers all my life. I was told to trust them. I was told to listen to them. And on October the 8th, on Friday, transportation failed me. They failed me because bus 166 dropped my daughter off at the wrong stop. She is 4 years old and she's a pre-K student. She wears these nice little name tags that her elementary school asks her to wear that has her name on there as well as the address. Okay? It's a daily requirement. So my job as a parent is that I put it on her in the morning. I make sure it stays there. Her school did everything fine. They made sure it was there as well. They put her on the correct bus. It was the bus driver that dropped her off at the wrong stop. Now, one of the things that bothers me is that anything could have happened, but though we don't like to visit the what ifs, we have to visit the what ifs. Okay? When you put a person that's on a bus that's 4 years old, you cannot take that little child's point of view that they're going to know where they get off. They're going to know street signs. That's not going to work for them. You have to read these name tags. Now, I received 3 phone calls from her babysitter. She gets on at the same spot. She gets off at the same spot. She's been riding the bus since August the 30th. So this wasn't her first time on the bus. This was a substitute bus driver who neglected to read the lanyard. I was responded to by Ms. Moore. She was very efficient. I appreciate that. But she asked all the wrong questions and had all the wrong responses. When I asked my daughter what happened, she said, well, the bus driver said, get off here. Ms. Moore, I'm going to pull the tape. I'm going to review it, see what happens where the bus driver didn't say anything directly to your daughter. Yet when administration pulls it, the bus driver says, do all y'all get off here? Now, you let that come from a 4-year-old, all they heard was, get off here. That's the extent of your mind frame. Now, when I spoke with Ms. Moore about it, her thing is, well, we don't train the bus drivers to read the tags. That's something that we probably should, so I'll take accountability for that. Why do they have it on if they're not required to read it? Well, why did your daughter get off? She's 4. If she knew that other people got off at her stop with her, why didn't she get off with those people? She's 4. You're putting too much weight on a toddler. to know when to get off the bus, who to get off with, okay? I see my time, but that last person got 6 minutes. Okay, so I want to go on with my last 3. The regulations that I'm looking for is that you put inside your policy that bus drivers, whether substitute or not, you're required to read. I'm a 4th grade reading and Virginia history teacher. It's fundamental. You need to be able to do that. Also, if you have other students that get off at that same spot, I understand the buses have assigned seating. I understand that it's for contact tracing purposes. But when you group the kids together, they're already exposed to one another. So have them get off. And then other bus drivers, as well as those that are there, please make sure you take the time to read. There was a parent that had my daughter that day. Due to privacy, I can't get your name. So I'm not able to know that. But if you're watching this, thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for taking the time to make sure that my daughter was safe. I appreciate that. And thank you for your time.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
When did this incident happen?
This happened on Friday, October the 8th.
Okay, this is my first hearing, but I don't know if I'm your board member, you're in my district. But if you have a problem and you don't get an answer, you call me, because I'll get you an answer one way or another.
Yes, and Miss Moore was very accommodating. She was there on the scene in order to speak, but she had the wrong answers.
Right.
And I'm not here to point fingers. I just want us to do better.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time this happened, but I'm hoping with my daughter it'll be the last. You know, as a 4-year-old, anything could have happened. She was dropped off at Double Bubble. Now, on Tuesday, I'm a concerned parent, so I followed the bus. On Friday, I was done with transportation. Okay? But who am I to punish a 4-year-old who likes feeling like a big girl, getting on the bus? So I followed that bus. I took off work. And that bus dropped off at least 5 to 7 kids at Love Shop Road. There were 2 parents out there. I pulled up on those parents to ask them, did any of you get a child off on Friday? No, so I know that was an angel that got my child. Okay? Because anything could have spooked her, whether it was a dog that came out running. That's a busy highway at the Double Bubble. That's a mile, that's 1.2 miles from her destination of where she's supposed to be. So even with speaking with that, yes, it was handled properly for the board members that responded back to me. I appreciate you. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you to the principal who called, but then put it in the hands of transportation, because that was very smart, that was very wise. There was no reflection on that principal, but it was on transportation. So I just want us to be mindful. I want us to put something in place that requires you not just to be a sub. And even if you have multiple routes, are you sanitizing? Are you in that big of a rush not to see if there's anyone to get that pre-K child at the bus? If there's someone putting her on in the morning, surely there should be somebody there getting her off. So I want us just to be mindful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Madam Chair, thank you,
All I
good.
can say is, as a school district, I'm so grateful that your child is safe, but measures should be put in place so that doesn't happen again. And we're blessed that your child is still, safe.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.
Mr. Potts.
Yes, Ms. Brown. Did Ms. Moore apologize for the fact that that happened?
Yes, she did apologize.
Good, I'm glad.
It was more so of defending your driver. You can't defend a driver against a child.
No.
Okay? A driver is there to read the lanyards that you're asking parents to put on the child.
Right.
You know, it's not to ask questions, well, why did the 4-year-old hop off? You know, why did she got off willingly? She's never gotten off willingly, and she's going to listen to an adult. That's what I was raised to do, so that's what I raised her to do. You don't question an adult, you listen to what they're saying. And she only caught a piece of it, get off here. She didn't hear, do all y'all get off here. You know, and I'm not going to badger her because of sensitivity, because then she feels like she did something wrong.
Exactly.
You know, as a parent, I'm like, nope, we not doing the bus. I'm going to have to figure out a way. I'm going to drop you off. Can't take chances like that. But then she's like, well, I'm a big girl. I can ride the bus. So I'm not going to punish her because she didn't do anything wrong.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ms. Brown. I'm not through yet, so hold tight. Y'all think I'm letting this go, y'all crazy. Did the principals apologize to you for this happening to your daughter?
Yes, the principal apologized as well. The parent that got my child didn't actually reach out to the principal. She reached out at a teacher at that location. That teacher went and picked up my daughter and brought her to me.
Ms. Potts, she gave us all of those details in our email of exactly what happened and, that day.
Okay.
And
Well-
so we just need to put a policy in place so that that does not happen again.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report and information. Dr. Lindberg.
Good evening and welcome. It's good to see everybody here tonight and have such a good crowd. And we appreciate the comments. They always are helpful and they always make us better. Even when we hear your concerns, we're heartfelt. And we will always listen. So I always want to start with our goals. We in February last year we established 6 goals as a board. We're trying our best to get to these to accomplish these goals. Goal 1 is develop career and/or college-ready citizens. Goal 2 is to continue to emphasize student learning and maintain full accreditation for all schools. Goal 3 is to modernize high school and elementary school facilities. Goal 4 is improve compensation for all employees in the school division. Goal 5 is provide equitable education opportunities for all students based on policy and data. Goal 6 is strengthen and facilitate engagement between schools and families. Just a good reminder of our goals as a division. I go to schools each and every day, and we are doing lots of great things in our school right now. If you go to our schools, you see kids wearing masks, and you see teachers engage with students, and see really good student learning. Board members, I invite you to come to schools. Just set an appointment, and we'd love to have you doing really good things in our schools. I had it on my list here, doing our best with health, and Tina will talk about it in just a second. Doing our very, very best with it. Not a day goes by we don't talk about best protocols. We do our own internal work with it, and principals meetings, doing our very best, and I think our numbers indicate that, even though they're not perfect. I'd like to thank the Halifax Education Foundation, who's given $15,000 in teacher mini grants. It'll be announced tomorrow. Larry Clark and the group of Halifax County Education Foundation always helps us. I would also like to thank our board for constantly attending meetings, the public hearings, and so forth. These are tough meetings and tough decisions that we're making. I certainly appreciate your work as we go through these monumental decisions that we're making for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lindberg. I just have a few remarks to make. It's been a very busy month since the last time that we met. And I just want to give you just a few things that has been out there for us to be part of. There has been a vaccine clinic at the high school, which I attended, and the Halifax Education Association meeting was also held. All of us attend discipline meetings when we're called upon, and I have visited many of our schools since last month, and I just encourage my fellow board members to visit them also. There really are a lot of good things going on in our schools. One last thing, I did attend an elective class. It's called the African American History class at the high school, and as I said, it is an elective class. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There are only 8 students at this point that are taking the class, and I intend on going back again. Again, I ask my board members to please go and meet with Mrs. Wilkerson, that's the teacher's name, and ask her, just let her know that you're coming. It is a very informative class, and I enjoyed it very much. One last thing I want to leave you with is I've asked Dr. Lindberg to put on the agenda in November some ways, or maybe one particular way, that we can help our staff get a little less stressed. Since school has started, our staff has been very busy, every single day, from the time the kids get off the bus until the time they get back on the bus. And so I've asked him to put on the agenda the possibility of doing something for our staff to relieve that tension. So that will be on the agenda for November. Again, I thank you for being here. You can't see it, but there's a smile on my face. Please continue to come. Please continue to come. Okay. Young lady, it's your turn. Ms. Brandon.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. According to the Health Encyclopedia, the human brain doesn't stop maturing until the age of 25. At Halifax County High School, there are approximately 1,487 students under the age of 25. There was a write-up that compared the school to a prison. This comparison is a false equivalent. We, the students, are not perfect. We make mistakes just like any average person. But why do our mistakes get more recognition than the amazing things that are going on at the high school? If everyone was informed of the astonishing achievements my peers are making, then maybe the community citizens wouldn't focus so much on the mistakes that we make. To be eligible to play a sport, you have to be in good academic and behavior standards. This gives students an incentive to behave and perform well in class. Even students who don't participate in sports benefit from conducting well. They can attend sporting events. Our school sports are doing very well this year. The football team has won all 5 games, and J.D. Cunningham placed 11th in the VHSL State Golf Tournament, just to name a few. Also, the article said chemistry and advanced math are no longer taught in our high school. This statement is false because many students graduate with not only a high school diploma, but also an associate's degree. The Halifax County school system has produced many successful individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item are the recognitions. Ms. Robinson.
Good evening, Dr. Lindberg, Madam Chair, Board. I would like to actually bring you some really great news from the Career Tech Academy. I have several students and actually one industry partner that can actually give you some great feedback on how your students are performing in the workplace. So I applaud what you were saying. As a student rep, I want you guys to actually see it in person. So I will actually ask Lisa to give you a little overview. I do want you to know that all of our year 1 programs, the students are coming out with career studies certificates. Now with these work-based learning students, they are receiving their high school credit through CTE with you guys for meeting their 280 hours plus, but Southside is also giving them college credit with SDV 196 and 197 while they are with Ms. Metler in the class. So I will have her introduce some of the students and give a little information.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm the work-based learning instructor. Yeah, that. Work-based learning instructor. And we've built over the last couple of years an amazing network of partnerships with businesses that not only take our year 2 students as interns, but also will come and support our program with guest speaking or tours of their facility and things such as that. We have probably well over 100 partners at this point that work in the 3 counties. This year I have 10 students who've all been placed near their home high school, except for one. And this is Morgan and Cameron, who are right now interning at Rogers Heating and Air, and they can't say enough good about how well this program is working for them. You guys come up and tell them.
So to give you a little overview and stuff that I've heard, and I'm going to have them talk they're coming, you know, in their actual work attire, and you have seen them on Facebook. Ms. Coleman actually met these students in class. One of the things that I appreciate with Joey and Alyssa is that you guys are getting the membership at the gym free, just like the full-time employees. So they are actually reaping the benefits. So, you know, I appreciate these businesses stepping up for you. They are seeing good things and taking that chance with them. All right, Gary.
Oh Lord. All right. But yeah, I don't know. It's like it's just a whole nother opportunity for us to like improve and just do more. Cause like before this, I didn't know anything about this, and then we started going over there, and they started talking about it, and just kept on going. It's like it's giving me opportunity after school. Like something I can go straight. I'm already like taking the college classes now. I can just go straight into it. Just something to just drop back into. I already be working. I already have me something for my rest of my life.
Very good.
Hey, I'm Cameron Nelson. Can you hear me? Hey, y'all. All right, well, starting off with Rogers, I don't know, it's probably the best thing that's happened to me. Well, best job around here I've been through. I've been through a lot of jobs, a lot of farming, a lot of landscaping, just stuff like that. And I think Rogers on it. They're very good employees. They treat you good. They give you a good work base to start off from, good experience. It's a good foot in the door, too. And I believe without the internship class and stuff, it wouldn't be available for us. I think that helped us out a whole lot getting us there. And I just feel like Rogers is just going to be a very good place for us. This internship's helped us.
And Wyatt is interning at Comfort Systems USA.
It's just a beautiful thing to.
We put them on the spot. So
Yeah, it's just a great opportunity for me and one of my friends, Ryan. He works with me. He just couldn't attend tonight. And pipe fitting has never really, I never really thought I'd do it. And then I went there and I actually enjoy it. So I'm glad that I had this internship.
Very good. Very good.
And then I want to introduce you to Mark Godzany, who's from Comfort Systems as well.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. So we have been, working with interns now for 3 years, and proud to participate with good young men and women that can come into our business. This week we hosted the current welding class from the high school, so we met with them. All levels of management met with them, from the president, CEO, myself, HVAC department manager, and our AutoCAD technician, and put on a presentation for them. So get them introduced to what we do. Most people don't have a clue what we do there, so we're blessed to have those come into our facility and see it, learn a little bit about it, and hopefully gain some interest. I encourage you to continue these type programs because the return on investment for a trades school to career is much, much exponentially better than a 4-year college degree and all that debt to come back into the workforce. So to let you know the opportunities we've described to them, most all of our management, mid-management at Comfort Systems came from within. They all were nurtured and given opportunities and training, while they're employed there, and they've risen, to new challenges. I mentioned Sarah Cuff as our CAD tech. She was a Halifax County High School student. She took AutoCAD in high school when I was offered, went to DCC. I hired her out of upon graduation, and she's now our CAD manager of 4 additional CAD people. So doing an excellent job. So that's the type of opportunities we offer. Our pay is excellent, our benefits are very good, and so these young people have an opportunity that a lot of people don't have. So to tell you the opportunities, we have about 150 employees, and we have about 50 temporary employees on top of that. So as I explained to them, that's 50 positions I'd like to hire full-time if we find the right people that have the right interest and love to work with our hands. So thank you for this opportunity to work with your young people. Thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. What's been so beautiful about this program is that these students are not only honing their skills that they've learned in the 11th grade by going into the internship program and working in a professional environment, but it's also giving them a lot of social skills and employability skills. They're learning how to work with other people, and I've had students give me feedback for the last 2 years that they feel a part of something, and they feel that they're listened to and that they can contribute and be a productive member. And that gives them the motivation to be on time and all the other things we look for. Thank you.
Yep.
These 3 students are the welding students that I actually brought to you last year when we were at the middle school. And I don't know if you remember, but several of them indicated that without the programs that you guys, pay for through our, through the higher ed center, they wouldn't have gone to school. Now these students actually have the opportunity to actually do something with their hands in trades that aren't necessarily academic, or at least they don't think it's academic. We slip it in there with them. But I do want to say something from one of the visitors that we have from Mecklenburg Electric. Danielle Potter came and talked to all of our year 1 students, and she actually talked to them about how she went through a 4-year university, came out with $100,000 in debt. When she came back to Halifax, it took her 3 months to find employment in that field. And she was talking to them just about like the linesmen, there are getting actually $25 to $35 an hour. And that's not even working, some of these storms that we're experiencing. But I do want to thank you because you actually are giving students who might not have had the opportunity to get a degree post-secondary, you as a board are actually giving that opportunity to our students. So as an administrator and a parent, I just wanted to thank you. And our door's always open. I hope we end up having more students next year within our year 1 programs. We have welding, automation robotics, energy, and IT. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we're in transition for the CTE coordinator, but we need to make sure that we fill all of these spots, Dr. Lindenberg. We need to recruit and make sure that every spot is taken, because this is a safety net for those children that have no desire. Because when I interview them, they said, I don't want to go to college. I just want, I want hands-on stuff.
That's a great program.
And so that has really inspired them. And there are some other children out there that we need to identify and convince their parents that this is the way to go. And we challenge the CTE, the new CTE coordinator, to keep those slots filled 100%.
Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Okay. Recognition of Mr. Barksdale is next.
Yeah, if Andrew and his family would come on up, I see him out there, and come on up. I want to recognize Andrew Barksdale. Andrew is an employee in our school division, and there's a very inspirational article in the paper, and I'm just going to hit some of the highlights about Andrew. This is a complete success story. I've known Andrew for 5 years, and first met him at Sinai Elementary School. Met him at Sinai Elementary School. I teased him about pro football. He's a New York Giants fan, I believe, and we kind of had banter back and forth on it. And but it was easy to tell early on that Andrew had a gift for children, and he was a custodian. And I remember Andrew in a meeting. I'm sure he remembers this too. And it was a mentor meeting, and he said I'm just a custodian or something like that. And almost it was a lament. And I said, Andrew, you way more than that. The kids at that school love you, and you inspire them every single day. And anyway, Andrew has worked his way up from custodian to head custodian from custodian at Senator Jennings to head custodian, or custodian at Sinai to head custodian at Senator Jennings, and now he's our local area computer lab manager at Senator Jennings. And the article is outstanding because we like to think that we grow our own employees, and we like to keep them fixing. And nothing's been easy. He had a hard time passing the test, and I'm just reading what it says in here. And he went back and looked over things and said, I'm going to try this test one more time, and he passed the test. And it says in here, and this is Andrew, he says, fierce determination, Barksdale overcame one obstacle after another. And it is And then he said about kids coming back to school this year, and if you see him in action over there, you'll understand all this. He says, it was tremendous when my students came back in the building this year and saw him in a different role. This is from Linda Owen, and not only is it a success for his family, but also for the boys and young ladies in our building. They can see that when you have an education, you can move up and do different jobs. And so, Andrew, we're so proud of you. Thank you for being just a hero for our school, for our citizens and our students. Andrew, Miss Owen, come on up and Miss Owen. Anybody else want to join us in a picture? You can.
Come on, baby.
I'm gonna stand in the back here.
Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Lindberg, the VSVA Academy Awards.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have several awards of recognition for our school board members. It's been a difficult year to go to conferences and participate in school, but we did participate to the best we could. So we have several awards of recognition, and I will present those at this time. Award of recognition. This award is presented to Mr. Freddie Edmonds.
All right.
Sit down. Award of recognition. This award is presented to Miss Patricia K. Fraley. Award of excellence, which comes with a pen. This award is presented to Sandra Garner Coleman. Award of recognition to Mr. Walter Potts.
All right.
Thank you for all you do, all board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next two items on the recognitions, Dr. Lindberg and I guess are sort of responsible for. Dr. Lindberg and I talked about it during the summer, ways that we could recognize employees in our school system that were doing positive things. I don't know if many of you know exactly what a parapro is, but this individual does a vast amount of work in our county for our children, for our teachers. Ms. Brizendine is shaking her head. They go unnoticed. They really do. They have to do a lot of coursework to be a parapro. It's not something that you're just hired and handed. There are some ladies here that we're going to recognize tonight who started out as parapros here in our county working with our children. They became teachers. So tonight we're going to recognize those ladies. And in the future, you know, continue to recognize other employees that we see during the course of the school year. I'd like to call out their names. First is Ms. Rutherford, Ms. Gales, Ms. Emerson.
Oh,
Come on up. Come on up.
Yeah.
Ms. Rhodes, Ms. Jennings, Ms. Chandler.
You know, teaching is a very challenging job now, and those people that make the decision to plunge into the profession, I commend them, because there are a lot of challenges now for to make a decision to become a teacher. So I commend these ladies that they decided to go into the profession.
The next group of individuals comes from Clay's Mill. There are 3 custodians there, and every time that I go to Clay's Mill, I make the statement to the principal, I could eat off the floor, and I think I could, with no problem. One day last week, I was there talking with teachers and visiting classrooms, and the principal brought me out into the hallway, and he said, Miss Fraley, I want you to look at something. And I thought he wanted me to look at the hallway, because the hallway was just sparkling. I mean, it was just clean, it shined. He said, no, I want you to look what the custodians are doing to the walls. They have these sponge-like mops or brooms, and I'm sure there's a special name for them. And they were taking these brooms, and they were going up and down the walls of the school to clean the school walls. And I just looked at them like, my gosh. The principal tells me that they did this even prior to COVID, but I believe that they even stepped up further to the plate when COVID hit us. People are keeping our schools clean so that our children will be safe and our staff will be safe. So, Mr. Brogdon, if you are here, please step up. Mr. Pennick and Mr. Canada. Who is missing?
Is Mr. Duffer out there?
I'm gonna get him. You wait. I'll get him. Yeah, it's,
Anybody else want to get a picture? Come on.
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, come on down. Outstanding employee.
There will be more. Last item under recognition is the FFA State Fair winners, Mr. Lewis.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Lindenberg, and board members. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to introduce Mr. Don Reese, one of our FFA advisors, and two young ladies who did outstanding this year in the state fair competition. And I'll let Mr. Don Reese come up and give a few more details. But thank you for this opportunity.
All right, again, I thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I want to introduce these two young ladies. So the FFA actually took 13 students. Y'all come on up here. We actually attended the state convention 3 different days with 13 different students and competed in 4 different contests. We competed in forestry judging, hippology, ag demonstration, and then Kaylee Zamora and Katrina Hill competed in the ag research poster contest. Excuse me. And what they were asked to do as part of this contest is to perform some type of research and then record that research and then make a poster showing what they did. And so Kaylee placed first in the state with her poster, and she did research on which is a rabbit's favorite fruits. And so she did actual research. She has rabbits at home, and she did actual research on which fruits or vegetables that they preferred and when they preferred them. And then she made this beautiful poster here to display that research. And she placed first and will receive a scholarship. Katrina Hill placed 7th with her poster, and if you don't talk to your cat about catnip, then who will? And so, which is very catchy. She did research with her kittens on how catnip affected them, and I'm sure had fun. I'm sure had fun with that. But we were extremely proud, and they did a great job, and of which all of our students did. But we were excited to have these two that placed. And so thank y'all. And okay. One more brief update on a couple other things that the FFA is doing. We are in 2 weeks. We are taking 4 students to the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, and so we're very excited about that. 4 of our students, and so.
All right.
Granddaughter.
Okay, so is Miss Jones your aunt? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You're famous. That's good. That's right. Okay.
Next item on the agenda are the reports. Instructional planning, Dr. Lindberg.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to our instructional team, and we'll start with Jeannie Hawks, and we'll work through Pam, Lisa, and Scott Warner. So, Jeannie, I'll let you go ahead and go with it.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Lindenberg, board members. This evening, we're going to share with you the update on the student learning, what we've done, and where we're headed. I may have to get one of y'all to click for me. At the request, we have gone back and shown you where we were. So here you can see our reading scores pre-COVID by school and how we were doing from the year 15-16 through 19-20, which was our last testing opportunity before COVID hit. Here are our math scores, and you can see we had made great gains along the way in both reading and math, but especially math. We had some phenomenal gains in certain schools. And even our science scores in areas we had really shown some improvement. And history. History, at some sites we were still struggling pre-COVID, but that's one we have been working towards. It's not for federal accreditation, but for state accreditation. The next slide, you can see our accreditation ratings from the year 10-11 through on this slide 14-15, but then you'll see the next slide will show you that we had made it to our goal of 9 of 9 in the year 19-20. And that is the status that we're still at because of the year 19-20 for the status of 2021. We did not take any assessments, so there was no accreditation ratings. And then for 2021, accreditation was waived. So if you are to look at the website, as I mentioned last month, it will say accreditation waived for the 21-22 school year. So what's going on in the world of testing? You may have heard that we have been doing some SOL assessments already called the SOL growth assessments. And this was due to a General Assembly House Bill 2027 and Senate Bill 1357, which is requiring the assessments in reading and mathematics in grades 3 through 8. For the current school year, we only had to do these twice, in the fall, and then we'll do the traditional spring SOL assessment. For next school year, that increases. The actual bill is written to do it the next year. We'll do it in the fall, the mid-year, and then again the follow-through with the spring assessment as we've been doing in the past, the traditional CAT test that we do. The other assessment change we've had for this school year is the Vap Assessment. Those of you who have heard of that know that that has been a collection of evidence, basically a portfolio that we have scored locally towards the end of the school year. Teachers gather information all throughout the year on those students. That assessment has been changed due to federal requirements. It is now going to be a multiple choice computer test for our lowest performing special needs students. That starts this school year. The growth after the 22-23 school year will be computed using the scores from both the beginning and the middle of the year assessments and comparing them to spring 2023 assessments. That specific methodology has not been released yet on how that's going to work, but once we know, we will share that information with you as well.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Linneberg. As we all know, students benefit from in-person learning, and the safe return to in-person instruction has always been our priority. The past 19 months have been challenging, but through it all, the students, families, and staff of Halifax County Public Schools have persevered. We have the following strategies in place to address learning loss. Prioritizing student health and safety through the implementation of COVID-19 mitigation strategies, implementing early warning indicators and multi-tiered supports, measuring school climate and providing social and emotional supports, providing teachers with professional development to support learning acceleration, and implementing summer learning or summer enrichment, after-school programs, and high-quality, effective tutoring. We first received GEAR funds through the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, the GEAR funds. We received $119,700. The purpose of this fund was to expand distance learning opportunities and to address learning loss. These funds were used the following ways: summer success for remediation and enrichment, and we purchased many math hands-on resources. Then came ESSER 1. Congress allotted funds through Coronavirus Aid, Relief, Economic Security Act for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, which is known as ESSER. We received $1,305,773 of ESSER 1 funds. This grant clearly states that the funds are to be used for preventing, preparing for, and responding to COVID. The funds are to be used to develop strategies to address learning loss through evidence-based interventions and to ensure that such interventions respond to students' academically, socially, and emotional needs. These funds were used in the following ways. We purchased Promethean boards, desktop cameras, we improved our firewalls, and additional funds was needed for summer school. ESSER 2 funds then, once again, addressed learning loss, preparing schools for reopening, testing, repairing, upgrading projects to improve air quality in school buildings. We received close to $5 million in ESSER 2 funds. These funds were used for after-school programs, summer success, for teachers and paraprofessionals assisted with, Virginia Virtual, Waggle, which was an assessment tool, laptops, Promethean boards, math manipulatives. We also improved HVAC in several schools and purchased buses. Then came ESSER 3. ESSER 3, we received a little over $11 million. We were required to allocate at least 20% to address student learning. Our administrators played a major part on how these funds were to be spent. They were asked to submit how the funds could best benefit their student body and their faculty. We far exceeded the 20%. Over 50% of these funds were directly used to address learning loss. With these funds, we hired tutors, teachers, paraprofessionals, instructional coaches, math specialists, behavioral specialists, virtual teachers, K-1 transition teacher, homework assistants, SPED teachers, school counselors, therapeutic counselors. As you can see, the principals all had unique needs, and so we had a wide variety of additional positions hired at all the schools. In addition to that, we purchased social and emotional learning resources, professional development opportunities for paraprofessionals and teachers, after-school programs, and resources.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to take you to elementary because we know without a doubt that face-to-face daily instruction is the key to our success in Halifax County. Let me show you the faces that are making a difference in the lives of our kids. And notice we're not just talking about the teachers because everyone in these buildings are educators and impact our students. From the Early Learning Center, South Boston Elementary, Meadville, Sinai, Cluster Springs Elementary, Sidner Jennings Elementary, Scottsburg Elementary, and Clays Mill. They are the faces that are moving our kids to where they need to be with the pandemic. So in elementary school, what are we doing? We have so many data points that our teachers are overwhelmed. As Ms. Fraley said, our teachers need help. We have all of these. If you would just pick out one grade, if you say pre-K, and look at everything that's listed for a pre-K teacher, a first grade teacher, a fifth grade teacher, and look at all the data we're asking our teachers to get. That's a lot. And it changes every day because we start with a group of kids and we send some home for quarantine. And then they come back in 10 days or 20 days. That data has changed because they have missed something. Even though they're sent home with the packet, our teachers then have more data to look at. to just look at everything we have, but the data is always changing. So what is our instructional plan for learning loss? The main thing is being back in school 5 days a week with our teachers, our parapros, our administrators, our math specialists, our reading specialists, everyone in the building, because everybody's job now is everybody's job. And I'll share with you what I mean by that in just a minute. Small group instruction, everything that we're hearing from the Department of Ed down is we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck by putting kids in small group based on data. We can't just teach to the entire class now because they're all from one spectrum to the other. We've got to group our students in the smallest group possible, but we've got to social distance that small group. We can't just bring them up and sit them at our feet and say, let's work together, because you got to be 6 feet away from me. You got to wear the mask. I want you to know what we're asking our elementary teachers to do. We've hired tutors. We know in many schools they're starting after-school programs. They're doing breakfast clubs. Summer Success, this year, for the first time, we added our ECSC and our pre-K students, whom we will continue with that. And then we created new positions using IRSA funds that Mrs. Eakes shared. The newly created positions from IRSA fund, all schools ask for additional tutors. Now, as a former principal and speaking for my peers, we all want the most educated, we want the best people hired to be those tutors. But we don't have enough retired school teachers that want to come back to fill the openings that we have, even though we've put it in our grant. Because a lot of retired people, they don't want to come back for the challenges that they're asked to do within the confines of our classrooms and our schools. At Meadville, they added an additional 5th grade teacher to drop down that number because Mr. Neal knows his school best. And he said that group of kids that have come through from 2nd grade up were a larger group. We need to split them because of all the challenges. So he asked for an additional 5th grade teacher. At Sinai, Mrs. Davis said, I need a reading resource person that's just going to pull out those most struggling students and work with them, hopefully on a daily basis. Our principals know our buildings. South Boston said, I would like to hire 2 reading coaches. In addition to the 2 instructional coaches, we need more assistance every day with the gap that our students are bringing from all that data that we know we need help with. Senator Jennings, Mrs. Owens said, I need a K-1 transition teacher because those pre-K students, if they started, were out most of the time. Kindergarten didn't come hardly any, but we know the needs are great. So she asked for a K-1 transition. And then pre-K needed an instructional coach because that's 8 sites, the Early Learning Center and 7 elementary schools, that one person is going to help close the gaps. So what are the challenges our pre-K through 5th grade teachers are facing? I want you to look at the first word on this slide because it says average students. This is powerful. Average students sitting in our classrooms right now need to make 2 years and 2 months gain in 180 days. Is that not stress on our teachers, our parapros, our administrators, our parents, our students, our community? And how did we get that? From March 17th, 2020 to May 20, we closed our schools. That's 2 months lost. Last year, from August 2020 to June 2021, we were virtual. For some students that did not have internet, they got packets. But until we brought our kids back, and then we went A day, B day, we know the main factor is face-to-face instruction. And then walking in this year, if we were not in a pandemic, we ask our teachers to help our kids move 1 year forward. So teachers walking into Halifax County this year, we're asking them in 180 days to move their current kids 2 years and 2
months. The weight of the world rests on our teachers, our educators. It will take more than a year to recover. As Dr. Hawks was telling us our scores, and we celebrated that we were 9 of 9, it will take a long time to recover. So when we think about test scores, we need to remember our teachers are doing the best that they can. And when our scores come back, we need to show grace to our teachers and our educators. Students in and out of quarantine. As I said, we are trying to look at that data and we make our groups. And the teachers, they can't just make a group, they have to make a seating chart for that group. Because if we have to do contact tracing, I have to be able to say who was in this small group. So I get all that figured out, and the next day, this group is quarantined for 10 days or 20 days. Then those kids are further behind. I've made lesson plans for that group. Now I have to do it all over in a different way because they're further behind. What are other challenges? Social and emotional impact of students and teachers. I go from building to building. I talk to parents. They all wonder, is today the day that my child's going to get the phone call and I have the worry that my child is coming down with COVID? Teachers every day walk into our classrooms and say, is today the day I'm going to get COVID and take home to my children? It weighs on everyone. This is a huge one. It's one we celebrate because for 4 years, elementary has studied our reading program. We looked at the data and we said, it's not where we want it to be. If we keep doing the same thing over and over, we're going to get the same results. Our teachers worked really, really hard. We brought in a consultant to help us. And this was the year that everything came about. We adopted a new reading series, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. We adopted Waggle, which, as Mrs. Zeke said, that's an online component that comes with HMH reading. And we adopted Words Their Way, because we know kids learn better by their sounds, but it's developmental. So I want you to notice what's underlined. All of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers are like new teachers this year. They have to learn an entire reading program. It's not just the 38 new elementary teachers. It's every reading teacher in elementary school are learning all of this, are having to go through professional development to help make them successful with our new products. Other challenges. K2 mask wearing impedes teaching phonics. You know, when I first became a teacher, I was in kindergarten. And today I want you to watch my mouth right now, how I position my tongue to make the sound. Did you see what Mrs. Long just did? Did you see where my tongue is? No, because I'm wearing a mask. But we're asking our teachers every day. Even with a shield, it's not as safe. But you have a classroom of kids that I then say, let me see how you make the TH sound. I can't see. It's important that we can see that. So we space everybody out. We very quickly say, but all day you can't do that. You need to understand what our teachers are experiencing every day. The next issue is building stamina. You know, we haven't been in school for 5 days, full days, very long. Kids are used to being at home. We're used to being at home on that Friday if we had a work day on a Friday. Our parents are building up stamina to know to send kids to school every day, not A day, B day. It's a long day for kids. And we're not just talking about our ECSE, our pre-K and kindergarten. We're talking about kids in 3rd grade. It's the first time they've been in school a full year since they were in kindergarten. Think about that. 3rd graders now have not been in school a full 180 days since they were in kindergarten. The struggle is real for our teachers. Every minute of the day, a teacher has to plan out every move he or she makes. It's exhausting for our teachers. You know, in the day when we said, let's line up to go to get a water break or use the restroom, now everybody stays 6 foot apart. Everybody, you gotta be by this pace, this little chart that we have. You can't get out of line. It's sort of sad to think that the only people you get to interact with are the 3 or 4 little kids sitting at your table because you can't interact with others. But if we do contact tracing and I haven't done my chart, then I might be in trouble, a teacher is thinking, or a parapro is thinking. But everything a teacher has to do has to be thought out. Wow. Wow. Lack of substitute teachers. If you think of everything that I just have talked about, we know why people don't want to come in and be substitutes. The responsibility is great. Not everybody can walk into our buildings and drive our buses. It's safety first. It takes a very caring person to say, you know what? I'll do that. Look at what we're asking these substitutes to do. I know why we have a shortage of substitutes. But someone has to be there to take care of our kids and supervise them. So who does it fall on? You know all those faces that I showed you that are smiling because they are the caring ones? It falls on them. And they step up to the plate. And if I'm a parapro, I get pulled from one job to the next job to the next job because we're there for our kids. If I'm a special area teacher and I have a planning period, I don't get that planning period anymore because I'm pulled to go cover a class or to take lunches to a room. It's daunting what we're asking our people to do. You know, our administrators, all they want to do is be in classrooms. They want to see the great things that's going on. But they have to make those phone calls to parents to let them know their child's being quarantined. They have to help push carts down the hallway to classes for breakfast and for lunch because we have to social distance. They can't all come into our cafeteria. But all those principals want to do is be in the classrooms for all these new 38 teachers and supervise them and tell them the great things they're seeing. But they're being pulled. This is the hardest year ever. The hardest year ever. The high number of beginner teachers and the supports that are needed. We have 31 of those 81 that we hired this year. 38 are in elementary schools. And they need great support. We don't have enough instructional coaches and math specialists to meet the needs of everybody because if you remember when I talked about reading, all of our teachers are new. And it's new to us all. So when I think of the challenges, I am blessed that the teachers that chose to stay are here. And I am so thankful for those who chose to come to Halifax. Because what we ask our teachers to do, and I know this can be the same for secondary, but my responsibility is in elementary. The challenges are great. I offer this challenge. For the teachers who stayed and those who chose to come, I encourage you to do all that you can do to implement that new salary package to reward our teachers in January. They deserve that. Thank you.
I have a question. Oh, Madam Chair, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
So the reading specialists that we all the people that received their reading specialist endorsement, they're not dedicated reading specialists. They're reading specialists / teachers. Am I right on that?
They are teachers within the classroom unless they got one of these jobs. They are still using their expertise within their own classroom.
Oh, right. So they're not able to share their reading specialist skills with, as a dedicated reading specialist. They're
Well,
classroom teachers also.
We have to remember we have a class who they're dedicated first, and they're teaching those kids all day. To pull them away from their class, we don't have somebody, Mrs. Coleman, to step in to cover that class.
I see what you're saying.
Because
It's amazing you still have teachers.
one of our schools, Cluster Springs, did put in their URSA grant to hire a reading coach.
Right.
But Mrs. Witt soon said, I can't find a teacher to cover a classroom to hire somebody, so she put that on hold in her grant. I mean, I wish we had a plethora of people to choose from to fill all of these.
I know. Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
And if the pay is not right, we're not gonna attract them. That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
In preparing this, there were so many things that we could talk about with instructions. We just touched upon a few things that you may not know about. So we're going to start with what we've done. Halifax County Middle School and High School conducted summer recovery sessions. We had 2 sessions you can see there. Masking and social distancing along with sanitizing protocols were employed by our student staff to keep our student staff and families safe. We had a modified bus transportation schedule, and meals and snacks were provided. Our instructional staff at both schools went to great lengths to reach out to parents and students, encouraging attendance and participation to address lost instructional time and or learning loss, provide students who were unsuccessful during the year with a second chance to pass a course or courses, provide a bridge through project graduation, and to provide services to our students with special needs. For example, our middle school was successful in garnering participation from all but 7 of those students who were in need of this program through multiple telephone calls, emails, texts, and letters. 161 middle school students participated in session 1, 96 in session 2. In all, 57 students participated in both sessions. An overwhelming majority of students participated in person, and only 2 students each session participated virtually. A nearly 100% success rate was achieved in session one, and then 2 had to repeat session 2. So, according to the data, all students were on track for 100% success. The high school staff and administration also worked diligently to recruit students to participate in the summer recovery and conventional summer school programs. 405 combinations of classes taken by 256 individual students over the course of the session 1 and 2. 195 students successfully completed classwork in session 1 and 143 students in session 2. They are now on track for successful completion. 72 students additionally signed up for either or both summer school sessions but chose not to show up. Nearly all eligible students who were unable to graduate on time in June at the completion of last year participated in project graduation, most of which were successful and were awarded a high school diploma later in the summer. Student participation in summer school programs was up nearly 300% as compared to the last previous normal year. It was the goal of the secondary instructional staff this past summer's enrichment and recovery program to provide our students with a jump start and an equal playing field for this school year. We believe that they were successful and continue to help students recover from the past several months of intermittent and non-traditional instructional delivery. And to get off script for a second, what Ms. Brandon said today shows you the quality of the students that we have at Halifax County High School. The 3 students that you had come up here earlier, it shows you how hard our teachers really work to pull those out of the trenches that aren't doing what they should be doing or need the motivation, and to bolster those, like Ms. Brandon, who are ahead of the game, and don't need a lot of motivation, but are still being pushed. And what's more remarkable, and Mrs. Hall can tell you more about it, I think we had about 80 to 85% of our new teachers this year are kids that we grew ourselves. Yeah. And so that speaks volumes about our own wanting to come back and give back. Students were the only group focusing on instruction this summer. 70 teachers put in nearly 1,600 hours of curriculum review and research to update and align our instruction. And I'll give you just a few of the things they did. They worked with standards of learning. They had to revamp our curriculum to meet the expectations of the 5 C's: critical thinking, creative thinking, communication, collaboration, and citizenship, which is also known as the Virginia Portrait of a Graduate. They also updated and refocused our instructional pacing guides that are so important this year with so many new faces in our teaching force. The pacing guides are our resource placed on our intranet for veteran and new teachers, and secondary wasn't the only group that did it. The elementary teachers did that as well.
I have a question, real quick question about the 5 C's. What class will be required to have that as a graduation requirement? The portrait of a graduate?
That's something that was released about 2.5 years ago.
What year will that graduating class be required to have the 5 C's?
This year? 2022, I think.
2022?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Also, that group of 70 teachers developed new strategies and selections of desperately needed classroom resources. Several years ago, it was decided in Halifax County that we go away from having textbooks at the secondary level, go home, and we went to classroom sets. And unfortunately, during that time, textbooks have not become, as you see here, in the past, instruction was always driven by classroom textbooks. For instance, a teacher would stand in front of the classroom and say, we're going to start on page 1, and we're going to hope to get to the last page by the end of the year. That's not truly instruction. That's instruction by virtue of a textbook publisher. With the standards of learning, which we've had since 1967, but we haven't had the testing for standards of learning since 1995, the Commonwealth of Virginia has come across a new interpretation of instructional resources. We don't necessarily have to use textbooks. We are now able to purchase modalities such as digital textbooks, e-subscriptions, digital instructional platforms, and other such modalities that our new and veteran teachers are becoming very creative with, where they can teach to the SOLs as opposed to what a textbook publisher thinks is important. Textbooks might be published in Missouri, but about Virginia history, that doesn't make sense, because the history that kids live and learn in Missouri or that they learn in Virginia may not be the same. Halifax County Public Schools is allotted approximately $460,000 from the state annually for textbooks. In the past, we waited for state textbook adoptions based on a schedule. Normally that meant that a subject area would have to wait 7 to 10 years between textbook orders. That's a long time, especially if you're a social studies teacher. A lot can happen in 10 years. Half of the textbook funds have now been allotted to secondary schools, which equates to about $230,000, which was distributed with this formula. 3/7 of that amount went to the 3 grades at middle school for a total of $98,571, or $16,427 per subject area, and 4/7 of that $230,000 for the 4 grades at the high school. And you see the total there, that's $131,429, or $18,776 per subject area. Now that doesn't include every subject area. For instance, our CTE classes, we have Perkins funds that provide textbooks and modalities for that group. Subject areas may expend all or part of that allotment annually, but what's really nice about state textbook funds is that they can be carried over each fiscal year, so that should a subject area choose to save their funding and allow it to grow for a big ticket item. We've placed in the hands the opportunity for our teachers to be able to garner the resources at the secondary level that work best for their students. And who knows better than our college-educated, fully licensed teachers who work in conjunction with one another during the summer to develop what they feel is the best set of resources to be able to provide an appropriate instructional delivery for our kids. And I think they've been pretty happy, but it's been real hard this year because they've never had this opportunity before to spend money. Also, this group at the middle school removed the traditional barriers for students to take honors classes at the middle school. This now provides more opportunities for more students to participate in rigorous classes where they can be challenged. It increases the student diversity in our honors classes. It also encourages students whose potentials who are at times untapped due to the reliance on the former reliance on the traditional standardized test scores and portfolios. In addition, the development of rigorous and challenging instructional content and delivery was undertaken by our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade English, science, and social studies teachers to provide a rich and multifaceted curriculum, not only for our EGP students coming from the elementary school who automatically get put in these classes if they opt to do so, but our students who also wish to dig deeper. So our folks were really busy this summer getting prepared for this year. And I pulled a few things out of the middle and high school. Here are some of the things that the high school has done to be proactive, having parent conferences and contacts. They've always had those, but they've escalated those. More referrals to the school counselors. We increased our school counseling staff by 1, I believe, through ESSER funds. Refer to peer mediation, communication through administrators for consistency of disposition, involving case managers for IEP revisions and BIPs. BIPs, for those of you who don't know, are behavioral intervention plans. The CEL program, which is the social and emotional learning program, which you're going to hear a little bit more about from Mr. Davis. Student reflections, principal announcements, school-wide Zooms, staff in the hallways, classroom meetings by administration, meeting with senior class, expanded duty lists for teachers to cover more areas of supervision. As what Ms. Long alluded to, we're asking our teachers to do more, but they're stepping up to the challenge. And we just pulled a few things so that you can see some of the faces, because don't believe the hype. For every one bad thing that you hear at the secondary level, you're going to see 20 to 30, or you will not see the 20 to 30 good things that are happening with our kids. For example, here, the environmental science class completed a project in watershed pollution. Ms. Martin's DE anatomy students made their own wounds, and this is not a real wound. Using common household items after studying I can't say that word, integumentary systems and wound formation. I hope I said that right. Auto mechanics provides students with many important skills for the workplace. Here students are cleaning threads on lug bolts. Culinary arts students delivering items prepared in class to teachers. They offer a variety of paid meals throughout the school year to faculty and staff. Students practice the correct technique for closed bed for a patient that's not bedridden. This is a shot of David Riddle's class participating in the social and emotional learning activity called Theme Song. School appropriate songs submitted by students for a teacher to play and have the class guess whose song it is. Student who submitted the song eventually gets to explain how that song speaks to them and their background. And this follows the social and emotional learning standard SOA 1 for grades 11 and 12. Tonight you saw these two ladies here. Our co-curricular activities. And let me explain that a little bit different. We have curricular activities, which are the normal classes that you see kids that are in during a day. Extracurricular activities, we know what that means. It's sports, it's clubs. Co-curricular is the combination. It's your band programs, your choir programs, your FFA, your JROTC, your horticultural. At the middle school, what a great play on words, using something that's very popular with kids and adults, Starbucks, twisting around for Starbooks, giving a real interesting spin. So, ladies and gentlemen, instructionally, Our teachers are working very, very hard for all of our kids. The kids that are the top of the class, the kids that are in the middle, and the kids that are looking for the opportunity for career development and to make their way in the world. And we want to thank our teachers. I know you guys appreciate them very much. You get a chance to go into the middle school and the high school, I think you'll be remarkably surprised at how attentive the kids are, how well they're behaved for the most part. And of course, in any school where you have over 1,000 kids, you have the occasional child who may misbehave. That might be something that occurs at home because of a bad family situation, and they may bring it to school. But when we come down to it, I think that we have some of the best kids, and we absolutely have the best teachers. Thank you.
Mr. Warren.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, go on.
I've got a question. We got about 17 million from ESSER funds. I still haven't got an answer to my question. Why can't we pay our employees for being out due to COVID? Now, I have checked with several other counties. Roxborough, if you're full-time, you get paid. Mecklenburg, they pay up to 10 days. I mean, we have all this money. We talk about taking care of our teachers, bus, car drivers. Everybody works in this school system. Yeah, I still can't, I want a definite answer tonight. Why can't we pay these people up to 10 days of their time if they contract COVID in the school system?
All I can tell you about ESSER funds is what I can allude back to what Ms. Eakes brought up, is that the ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 funding are funds that have to be applied for through a grant. And that grant has to be stipulated ahead of time for the reasons that we use the funding. And I don't believe then when those original grants were submitted.
Dr. Warner, can I try to answer that, because I think it's fair. Can we hold that question till we do our health report? I think it's a fair and good question, and we can discuss at the end. Would that be okay if we did at the end?
Yeah, I mean, you know, from what I pulled up on the ESSER funds, it is for salaries.
Sure.
So this is considered as salaries. Why didn't we look into this to start with?
Okay, I can answer it now. I mean, we're doing instruction now. I can answer health later. I mean, I can certainly answer that. I mean, we have a couple more here or not. I mean, you tell me on it. I'm just trying to get through the instructional part on it. I'll be glad to answer it. You want me to do it now, or?
I'd rather do it now.
Okay. So we have asked that question about, the question is, the way I see the question is, and maybe we don't have it right, but we've asked the question is if you're vaccinated versus unvaccinated, if you have sick days and you're unvaccinated, you are paid, you use your sick days and you get them, okay? And you use your sick days and so forth until you run out, okay? So the 10 days, if you have your 10 days, you would get paid in our division. Okay, the challenge that we have is if you are vaccinated, you don't quarantine, so you are working no matter what, okay? So if you're vaccinated, you quarantine if there's a positive test and you go through contact tracing. We have about 80% of our employees, I think, Tina, is that right, that are vaccinated? So it's a fair question. It is a fair question. I don't know if we have the right answer or not, but we have said that when you run out of your sick days, which would be over 10 days, I think everybody, is that right, Val? Everybody gets 10, how many days do you get? 10 days. So you get your 10 days, okay, day on it. But I mean, I've tracked it down to the best of it. I've asked the Virginia Department of Health. I've asked Craig would I send an email out to our colleagues in the school divisions, and we think we're in line with them. I mean, I can send it out again and ask them. It was a month ago when our region colleagues asked about that. But the challenge is those that are vaccinated are going to work no matter what. I mean, you understand, if they're vaccinated, unless they end up with a positive test, they're there. So then it almost becomes a reward for missing school if you're unvaccinated, you're out. Now the worry I've had with it the entire time is that there are, especially for females, there are fears of taking the test, and we have a large female base of employees. So I get the fear, and we think we're making the right decision on it. But it's like everything else we do during COVID. I'm not certain if we're right or wrong on it. We're trying our best to do it. I do know that the new OSHA standards, and Tina, if you want to share a little bit more on it, it will require all employees to be vaccinated, or you test every single week, is what it's going to be in the future. We haven't got the memo on that, but that's coming. I mean, we could certainly have the.
Really, if you have a teacher that is teaching special needs child, okay? That teacher comes down, tests positive. That student tests positive. Okay, that teacher, you're saying vaccinated. I say vaccinated, unvaccinated, you're discriminating against the other. That's my opinion. But we have these ESSER funds, and this bill that they sent out, it says for salaries.
Mm-hmm.
That is salaries.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why, we don't have that many out all the time, but why can't we pay these people up to 10 days? If you take a man and a woman that's employed with the school system, one of them comes down with the COVID. Okay, 10 days right there. The husband, 10 days. You know, it's just a circle. But if we give them this incentive to pay them for 10 days, and I asked this board to vote on this tonight, let's pay these people up to 10 days that they're out. Because you take, your teachers may get 12 days, you got a new teacher comes in, what does she get? She gets 10 days. If she comes down and has to quarantine twice she has nothing.
Yeah.
There goes her salary.
Yeah.
So I'm asking this board tonight to pass this. Let's pay our employees. Let's take care of our people. That's all I'm asking. And that's the only solution. Let's pay them. And we'll be done with it. This argument won't come up anymore. But you know, I'll keep on till I'm blue in the face until I get a direct answer.
Okay, first, you see that we are paying salary for a lot of folks in ESSER 3, so you can do that, okay?
Right.
That's fair, okay? Second thing is simple a policy decision. You are a policy-making board, and if you want to vote the policy in, you can, okay? That's fine. If you go 10 days, in 10 days, again, your folks that have been vaccinated, they don't quarantine. Okay, even through contact tracing, only way they quarantine is if they have a positive test. Okay, so they're working no matter what if you're vaccinated. Okay, if you're not vaccinated and you're exposed, then you get your 10 sick days is how it goes right now. But after that, if you have more, you can use those. If you have more, then you can use those. But when you run out, you run out. Okay, and the challenge, that's right, isn't it, Ms. Hall?
Yes, it is.
That's right. The challenge, again, is vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I get it. I understand the struggle for those who not vaccinated. That's the challenge that we have. It's a policy it's how we've implemented it, and to the best of our ability. So, I mean, if you want to do it, you can. That's up to you, yes.
Madam Chair, may I last week?
Yes, Mr. Camp.
Mecklenburg County, I talked to them last week, and it was some confusion as to what, there might have been a change in the policy or whatever, so I called them. Because I've been emailed, I've had telephone calls from teachers about this, okay? So what they're doing in Mecklenburg County is that when a teacher has to quarantine, as we heard tonight from Ms. Beatles, you know, vaccinated people contract COVID as well. Mm-hmm. She's talking about taking 2 or 3 days, sending the vaccinated folks home, take 2 to 3 days, then take a test. Okay. Now, what they're doing in Mecklenburg County is this: If you're quarantined, if you got to go home, you get to call. If you're quarantined, doesn't say that you contract COVID. It's if you're quarantined, you get paid for 10 days, regardless of vaccination status. Okay, and that you're quarantined based upon a determination from the school nurse, a medical professional within the school district, within the school system, or a doctor, or that quarantine determination can be made by either one of those folks. But to be quarantined, you get paid for 10 days in Mecklenburg County, regardless of vaccination status. Now, to go back to Ms. Beatles, you know, vaccinated people get COVID as well. So this would affect, it's not a vaccinated versus unvaccinated issue. I mean, it's whether you're quarantined or not. That's the key.
I have a question, Madam Chair. These people are being paid by Mecklenburg County, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
So they're paid for 10 days. Out of what fund are they paid out? Are they paid out of their general fund, or are they paid out of ESSA money? Because he's talking about ESSA money.
They are paid out of CARES funds, ESSA funds, those funds. Not the budget funds. It's coming out of these funds.
Okay, second question. Have we not talked to Greg about this 2 or 3 times?
I have. I've talked to Greg about it. I've talked to the Virginia Department of Health and do what I think is my due diligence on it. And Val, if you want to expand any more on this, you're welcome to as well. I mean, the questions are fair. I mean, you know, and how we're handling it. This is what we tried to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, Val. Is if you have, if vaccinated or not, if you are vaccinated and you test positive because you've taken that proactive stance, then you get the 10 days. Then we pay you 10 days no matter what. Okay. If you're not vaccinated, you use your sick days. Okay. But it's rare. I don't think we've had anybody. Tina, on the data on it. I mean, we've had, as far as positive tests for vaccinated, I don't even know if we have that information.
We have not had any children who are vaccinated test positive, but we have had a few employees who are vaccinated test
Okay.
positive. I don't have that exact number, but it's been a few.
Yeah.
I would say less than 5.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we pass this tonight to pay our employees up to 10 days if you contracted it within the school system.
How do you know that?
That's not on the agenda. We can't just,
How
we
do
just
you
can't
know
do
that?
that if it's not on the agenda.
Point of order, Madam Chair. This is certainly doable. It should be, once we get to new business, and with it's a 7-member board, to add something, your agenda has already been approved. You're adding something to the agenda. We'll need a 2/3 vote to add it to the agenda, which is, did the math a moment ago. It's 5, and then you will only need a 4-person vote to pass it. But I think we should conclude the reports. Once we get to new business, Mr. McDowell, you asked for an opportunity to address the board. Then you asked that the motion be added to the agenda, and then you guys go through the process of debate. Okay?
Thank you,
Excuse me,
Mr. Long.
Madam Chair. I thought we were supposed to add this at the beginning of the meeting.
It should have been added before the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Whenever anything is going to be discussed, it needs to be done prior to the meeting. However, with a 2/3 majority, you can add something to the agenda
Okay.
at any time.
But the proper way to do it at the beginning of the meeting.
Or a couple days ago.
Right.
Absolutely.
To get it on the agenda.
Absolutely. Now, if
Okay.
you guys choose not to vote to allow it to go on the agenda, then Mr. McDowell should add it to next month's agenda.
We need to get a roll call on it.
You don't get anything on that until we get the motion on the floor.
Roll call on what? I'm sorry.
We haven't even got a motion
We
yet.
have to wait till we get to new business.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the appropriate time. The appropriate time is when they said approval of the agenda. That's when it should have been done. But we're not there now. We've got an agenda,
we'll get to new business and we'll deal with it.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have to agree with Mr. McDowell. It sounds like there's a obstacle here of being vaccinated or not being vaccinated, which I got some opinion about too. And if you don't want to get vaccinated, I think it's tough luck. But the thing about it, we shouldn't make the discrimination on that. If our teacher's gonna get 10 days, they're gonna get 10 days either or, the way I see it.
Okay, can we wait until we get to new business and then we can do this? Let's just get through with what we're doing right now, and then what Mr. Long said, we can attack this for new business. Yes, ma'am?
I had a
Question.
I had a question.
Okay.
Since this is secondary, and I know this might be adding something to the plate, but it was in the paper that we had, our graduation rate went from 93 down to, was it 89 or something like that percentage? Have we identified those children that dropped out, or do we have, I don't want to add anything
No.
to anybody's plate.
No, that's a good
but,
question.
You know, that's an action plan. Can we identify them and at least contact them to hook up with the GED programs or something?
Yes, ma'am. Most of those individuals were recaptured during Project Graduation this summer.
So those numbers are not accurate?
They were accurate for the end of the year. And then the remaining students that, there was just a few who didn't matriculate.
Right.
We have a brand new program in place that's being run by Miss Lori Coles through our new Gates Academy.
Okay.
And they are trying to recapture anybody. So, but that's a very good point.
So there is a plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. As I was meeting with the building level sped people over the last month, I told them I would argue that they have the most important job in the school system. It's not only do they have to know their curriculum in the area that they're being co-teachers in, they also have to follow IEPs, follow state regulations, and follow federal regulations. So as you know, in-person instruction is our goal for our students with disabilities. Our IEP teams across the district have worked diligently to ensure that the students receive their services in their least restrictive environment. During September, we've held mandatory building level SPED meetings where all the staff are required to come. They even participated in other buildings if they weren't available on the day that we had it in their building. We provided them guidance on IEP writing, accommodations, service planning, and behavior intervention plans. As a result, we feel strongly that our district is implementing IEPs with fidelity. We're offering monthly SPED training for all new special education teachers to familiarize them with the special education process, which, as you might imagine, is daunting, as well as the state and federal regulations, as most of these guys are career switchers. Intensive recovery services are provided to students who are being referred to our school-based intervention team. This is a process that has become bigger than life in that students are delayed because of the pandemic. And so by all intents and purposes, they look like they have a disability. And so in order to make sure that our referrals are accurate and the right referrals, we're providing intensive services to those students to see if they respond to those services before we go through the eligibility process and determine them to have a disability. We're having monthly district SPED meetings to cover topics that the teachers tell me they need covered, as well as the items that we as a department feel that they need to that we need to cover. Our related service providers have provided intensive recovery services as deemed necessary by the child's IEP team. They are also providing in-person therapy to as many students as allowed that are on homebound or home-based instruction as requested by the parents. We have parents that feel comfortable with that and understand that occupational therapy and physical therapy is very hard to do virtually, as you might imagine. And so speech therapy is a little easier, but we do have parents that have requested, can they come to my home because they see that their child has lost skills due to having those services virtual for the last year and a half. Teachers are providing remediation, recovery, individual assistance, and small group instruction on an almost daily basis. IEP teams are revising IEPs as needed to help support the students and provide them with the assistance they need to succeed. Some students that have significant medical needs are provided homebound services. This happens per physician's request. There's a set of paperwork they fill out to request homebound services. Home-based services, we have several that are participating in that setting, and that's an IEP team decision. And we have some of those that the parents don't feel comfortable with them coming, so they've requested home-based services, even though there may not be a significant medical need for them to receive homebound services. So that's just a real brief overview. We're doing the best we can for our students with special needs, and again, I argue that my guys have a tough job.
Amen.
Thank you for your support with them.
Good evening. As we realize that education is very important, but what's most important as well, as opposed to education, is the social and emotional well-being of not only our students, but our staff particularly. This past July, the Department of Education released social and emotional learning standards that we are using for each grade level. In each building, we've already identified social and emotional learning teams that will work with our staff, that will work with our students to provide the additional support that they need as we go through this pandemic time. All right, thanks.
I have a question.
Yes,
Madam
ma'am.
Chair, question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you in charge of the homebound assignments?
No, ma'am. That's Mrs. Bruce.
Okay. Has she complained about, are you all able to get homebound people, or what's the?
I don't know I think she is finding homebound teachers. I know that was an issue at the beginning of the school year, but I think she's working through that process. All right. Thank you.
Good evening. So as you guys know, families were given the choice over the summer to continue with in-person learning when we returned, or for their children to remain virtual. So we were in a pretty good place with the responses that we had by the June 16th deadline, but as our numbers increased right at the beginning of school, the number of requests increased. So we extended our deadline and did the best that we could to accommodate as many students and families as possible, and we were doing that up until probably the Friday before school started. So now we're kind of crafting that plane as we're flying it and learning and doing the best that we can to adjust. There are some things that have come up along the way with testing that we're working through, so getting the kids into the building for those growth assessments, administering PALS tests remotely for our kindergarten through third grade students. So we're just going and learning as we go on some of these things. But our virtual model, I think it's important to note, is still very different than it was last year. It is essentially a face-to-face model. So our students are still receiving a full day of instruction with teachers, the same as our students who are in the building. So that's where we are. We will open enrollment again for second semester. I'll send notification to families the week before Thanksgiving, and that'll give us a little bit more time before the January start date of second semester to be able to plug holes where we can't fill with our teachers to use Virtual Virginia more appropriately for the second semester as we get going. Yeah, it will. It will open up again for second semester. And what we can't accommodate without adding and overflowing our current teachers' plates, we'll use Virtual Virginia to supplement. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Have you all seen it?
Is that everyone?
Have we seen it yet?
Yep.
Oh, that's graduation, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
It's not the graduation, but it was our at our convocation video.
Oh, yeah, I saw it. I don't know if anybody else.
That's fantastic, yeah.
For Thomas.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
That's it, right?
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Next report is student behavior, Mr. Lewis and Mrs. Miller.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Lindenberg, good evening again. I will start this presentation. This is a three-part presentation with myself, giving a brief overview of where we are and also what we've done the past 3 years. And then I'll turn over to my colleagues, Mrs. Miller as well as Mr. Lewis, who will speak on their school's respectively. So this is the student discipline. You can go ahead. All right. This is just a review of the school board goals that you all had come up with, and we feel like these is a strong correlation to our student discipline that we have at the schools. As a reminder, 5 things to know about school discipline. School disciplinary actions are at the core a learning process. Student behavior problems may be about more than the behavior itself. Research shows that there's a strong link between disciplinary policies and actions and a host of negative outcomes. Recent federal guidance supports efforts to ensure that discipline practices are fair and equitable, and schools set the tone for the disciplinary climate. This evening, I'm going to share information, data that's disaggregated over the following academic years: 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, and then where we are right now, 2021, 22. These areas will include in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, long-term suspension, expulsion, the number of discipline notices issued, the top 5 incidents that we are seeing for this school year, as well as the locations. First, we'll start with the middle school. Excuse me, in-school suspension, 18-19, we had 359 incidences. 19-20, 181. Of course, 0 for 2021 because we were on that hybrid schedule starting as of April. And then this coming, so far at this point, we have 9 for the 21-22 school year. Out of school suspension, 18-19, 365, 19-20, 214. We had 1 to 2021, and then for this current school year, 22. Long-term suspension, 18-19, 2, 19-25, and 0 for 2021 and 21-22. And expulsions, there were no expulsions for any of the academic years outlined. Total number of discipline notices issued, 18-19 was 880, 19-20 was 549, 4 for 2021, and currently 45 for 21-22. Top 5 incidents from the beginning of this year as of October the 8th, 9 for classroom campus disruptions, 7 for bus disruptions, excuse me, 6 for fighting with no minor injury, attendance was 2, electronic cigarettes was 2, and vandalism of school property was 2 as well. Top 5 incident locations, of course, the highest being in the classroom, off campus, so school bus was 9, athletic field playground 2, the locker room gym area 2, parking lot 2, and the restrooms 2. Halifax County High School, in-school suspension 18-19 was 272, 19-20 was 292, 0 for 2021, and 36 for the 21-22 school year. Out of school suspension, 18-19 was 475, 19-20 was 460. There were 9 for the 20-21 school year, and currently there are 82. Long-term suspensions, 3 for 18-19, 8 for 19-20, 1 for 20-21, and as of right now, no long-term suspensions. Expulsions, there was 1 expulsion, 18-19, and 0 for the 3 years of 19-20, 20-21, and currently 21-22. Total number of discipline notices issued, 18-19 was 1,678, 19-20 was 1,658, 41 for 2021, and 247 currently. Top 5 incidents, 68 was attendance, 28 defiance, 21 classroom campus disruptions, 20 cell phone, 12 disrespect, and 12 for fighting altercation. And that doesn't mean we had 12 fights. That means there were 12 individuals that was involved. So let's say if we have two fighting, we have 6 instances of where potentially could have a fight take place. Top 5 incident locations, 119 was on campus in the classroom, 32 in the hallway and stairs, 7 in the cafeteria, 7 off campus outside of the outside area, and on campus, 6 at the athletic fields. So we're thinking there needs to be a shift in philosophy, rethinking discipline. If you change nothing, nothing will change. So our administration staffs are doing a very good job of addressing it, and they're going to share some of that with you momentarily. Teaching behavior as relentless as we teach reading or other academic content is the ultimate act of prevention, promise, and power underlying preventive interventions in America's schools. What do we do in school when a child doesn't know how to spell? We teach them. A child that does not know how to read, we teach. A child that does not know how to multiply, we teach. A child that does not know how to behave, what do? We change seats, we reassign, suspend, or expel. Supports and intervention. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Miller, who's going to share some specific things that they're doing at the middle school.
Good evening. I'd first like to give you all
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to start by thanking each of you for all that you do for our students and our staff. Prior to coming here, we did have the opportunity to recognize some great things our students were doing. Our volleyball team, they were competing for the championship. They lost in the last game by 2 points, but we're very proud of them. Tonight, on behalf of the middle school, faculty, staff, and administration, I will share an overview of student behavior and discipline at the middle school. We have a dedicated staff and a school where most of our students are making right choices daily. We also realize that there is always room for improvement, and that is what we work towards each day. So what I'll be sharing with you is more of an overview of what things have looked like for the first 30 days at the school, and that runs us through Tuesday of October 12th. On this slide, you'll see a comparison of student behavior and discipline for the first 30 days over the past 4 school years, including this year. Of course, for the 2021 school year, you will see that there was 0 because we were virtual at that time. And that 60 does not represent 60 separate incidents, but that does represent our total of 60 discipline notices that may be some incidents duplicated because of students participating, multiple students' participation. So here is where we will break down the data. Where does that 60 fall into play? Again, as Mr. Davis has pointed out, they're not that we've had 14 fights, but there could be 14 students who were involved in multiple fights. And so you'll see that as an example. So again, we do have some students who were involved in multiple incidents, and you'll see this data here representing the 60 that we have. As a result of those incidents, you will see some of the outcomes that we've had for our students. These include in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions, and other consequences, which may include things such as bus suspensions or different conferences and other outcomes for our students. And then these are a variety of the locations that we've had for our discipline incidents. You will notice that, yes, the majority of them are in the classroom, and shortly behind that, next to the bottom, are school bus incidents. We have taken proactive measures throughout the school year. So these are some of the things that we have already done or that we're currently doing. We always start the school year with a proactive and robust look at the student handbook. Everyone is given almost a script of how to follow that handbook so we can set our expectations for our students from day one. We have grown in our whole class social emotional learning instruction, and we've always had supervision during class changes, just strengthening that as well, giving students opportunities for reflection so they can learn from their mistakes. But we also note that the communication between the school and home is so important, and so we always meet with have some type of communication with parents when we see issues that have happened or issues that are arising. And we also seek feedback from our staff, and we provide our students with opportunities, again, to reflect on their choices. Many of the current things that we have in place are working, and we also see the need to find ways to continuously improve. Next week, we plan to implement and offer our after-school program. Although that's focused on the academics, but we also know if students can feel successful in the classroom, it gives them a better sense of connection to make better choices in the classroom. Also, some of the feedback that we receive from our staff is that some students are having a challenge in reacclimating to a full day and expectations in a traditional school setting. So we plan to offer student success sessions in small groups where we would just offer students opportunities in addition to some of behavioral concerns, but just the expectations, how to stay organized, just different things there that we see can benefit them as well. And we also found ways to recognize students for their academics. We will also begin to grow in the way we recognize students for their behavior recognitions and grow in our offering of grade level assemblies, because there used to be a time we could have them all together in the gym or reach out to each and every student in the cafeteria. However, that has changed due to the current situation that we're in. I just want to make it clear that we do not take student behavior or safety of our students and faculty lightly at all. While we do have many students that do make the right choices, we also have to be prepared to address those undesirable behaviors. We will continue to follow the path that is not something that we can do alone. There are some things that we do ask for your support in partnering with us. We have we have cameras throughout our building. We do have some exterior cameras. It would be helpful if we had additional cameras outside, mostly to cover the bus parking lot and the football stadium where we have different activities. And then while we're discussing cameras, every administrator does have access to them on their desktop. It would also be helpful if we had different screens that we can post in our offices so that we can keep that running continuously without having to shut down other things that we're working on during the times we are in our office. And I'd also like to add that it would be very helpful if we could have a consistent resource officer. And I want to say that the Sheriff's Department has worked cooperatively with us to make sure that we have officers on their premises each day. They've been tremendously helpful in whatever capacity we ask of them or whatever needs they see that we do not ask of them. However, we would like to have one consistent resource officer who has the opportunity to get to know our students, our staff, and the flow of our building throughout the day. And I always welcome each of you to come to our buildings to see what our dedicated staff and students do to work with our students each day. Thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, question, Ms. Miller.
Yes.
You just mentioned about having the deputy there. The deputy has always been supplied by the Sheriff's Department?
Yes, since I've been there, we have had one. That individual has since retired. There's no longer with them, so we've had different ones through the support of the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, and that person is paid for by the Sheriff's Department?
I can't speak to that part.
We're paying for it, and what's happened is I talked to Fred Clark about it last week and this week, and we have a shortage of police officers or law enforcement officers in our community right now. They don't have enough to staff who they have, so they're paying overtime for folks to come cover our buildings during the day because they can't staff what they have. Until that's rectified over time, that's the option that we have right now. I think we have folks there that are most of the time now, Dawn. Is that, if it's not, that's okay. What are you seeing? Is it most of the time? Is it? It's most of the time. Most of the time.
Some days it may be full, but it's most of the time.
And Ms. Miller is right, and I talked to Mr. Clark about it, Sheriff Clark about it, is if we had somebody there that was there, and that was it was good for us. They knew the kids, and that was proactive, and now, you know, we have folks come in, they're doing a good job, they're there, but I'm supportive of what she wants is just getting that person right now to do the job, because we're short-handed right now. We don't have, and talking to Sheriff Clark, talked to him yesterday and about it, and just they don't have anybody right now. They're 6 or, I don't know, Roy Keith, you were in the meeting, how many folks down were they said, safety meeting?
Say between the county and the town, there were about 10 to 12 officers down. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there was like 10 to 12 officers down right now, so that's the impact that we're facing. But we do have it covered most all the time. Just what Ms. Miller is right. She wants somebody there. That's what you want from a school resource officer. What we had in the past, where you had somebody there that knew the kids, knew the faculty, knew everybody. We got to get back to that. I mean, that's the aspiration.
Do we have any recommendations for a person to take this position?
It's a sheriff's position, and so that they're down positions. They don't have anybody to.
Nobody outside the sheriff's department.
I mean,
or advertise for it.
We have not advertised for it. In talking to Sheriff Clark about it, he thinks that it's best that we have law enforcement do it. He is working to try to find somebody. I mean, he hears, he knows that he is, I mean, bending over backwards, helpful with it, and they're getting there. He knows what we seek, but they're just down folks right now. They're down folks.
And if I may add, Mark, we had a lengthy discussion a few years ago as a policy board, and we were weighing exactly what you were talking about, Mr. McDowell. We were weighing the option of bringing in like a school resource officer versus actual law enforcement. And I maybe not have the terminology exactly right, but you know, as a board, we decided we really wanted the law enforcement presence there. And yeah, I think that was spearheaded with Mr. Lowry a few years ago. We brought that that conversation, had a comparison of the, the pros and cons of each, and we decided we wanted law enforcement. It's just unfortunately a major shortage in the county right now.
Is that including the people over the high school too? Those people over there are sheriff department people?
Michael, I think we have South Boston PD there, right? We have one full-time person there, and then another rotates in. Is that correct, Michael?
Right now, we just have the one full-time person.
Okay. And I do know that sheriff and PD they come to our elementary schools on frequent stops. I mean, I do know that. I think I see.
When you said full-time, he's paid by part of a particular department or what?
Paid for by us, right, Bob? Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that right?
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Yeah, yes, paid for by us.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Potts. Yeah, yes.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, Dr. Linneberg. If I might make a couple of remarks before I start into this presentation tonight about discipline. I was made aware a few moments ago that we had one of our JV footballs critically injured at GW Danville. I'm unsure of his status, and to protect the family, I certainly will not use any names at this time, but he was taken to the hospital there in Danville, so it's emotional for our staff when we have somebody hurt like that. So please forgive me if I appear a little shaken, because we do care deeply for our children. So I would appreciate that, Ms. Coleman, if we could do a moment of silence at this time. Thank you. Thank you. May our thoughts and prayers be with his family, as I understand they are with him. You know, I've had the opportunity to serve this county since the early 2000, and it's truly an honor and privilege to be able to serve the students and teachers at Halifax County High School. You know, when it is something that we take a lot of pride in, developing our students both academically, behaviorally, and otherwise. And I'll be the first to tell you that they make mistakes. And I'll be the first to tell you that we are well versed in how to handle those mistakes. But we have great children at Halifax County High School that do great things year after year after year. There are thousands of success stories in my time alone. And behind each one of those success stories, there's often something they would like to have removed from their disciplinary record. We take action when we need to. We have a staff that knows when to. We have resource officers that know when to take out charges. And we are doing a great job serving the students of Halifax County High School. And I want to give them a shout out for all the great things that they do every day that often goes unnoticed because of the few things that are noticed. Thank you. Now I'll start my presentation. Do I need to use this thing? So our historical data, if you see the first 20 days, you can see the number of referrals, and what this is, the number of referrals by year. And I've heard often this year that we're in much worse shape than we've been in past years. And I remember 16 and 17 quite well. It was quite a tough startup. And we had 213 referrals. In 17, 18, we had 136. 18, 19, 144, and obviously last year, 0. And this year so far, we've had 148. So as you can tell by the historical data, we're not what our community has said we are. We are working with our students on a daily basis with some of these challenges that do come up. As Mr. Davis talked about earlier, our top 5 referrals are noted here. This is up to date as of Tuesday, so his numbers and my numbers may be a little bit different depending on when we pull the data. But as you can see in the dark color there, that's the total number of referrals. And then in the light color, that's the number of students who were involved in those referrals. And I think it's important to note too, that at this time we've probably had 230 referrals. And when you do the math, it's 6 or 7% of the students in our high school are responsible for all of those referrals. So that means 92 or 3 or 4% of our students in the school are coming to school, they're on task, they're transitioning from class to class, they're doing what they're asked to do. Other notable events that we wish we didn't have, but we do sometimes. We had 5 fights this year. We've had 3 assaults. And often it comes up, have there been charges filed? Absolutely, some of these cases we have filed charges through our school resource officer. I received 3 subpoenas just this week for some of those. Some of our current challenges that we have, and probably not largely different than any year.
Can we click the PowerPoint, please? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, sir. So here are some of our current challenges. Students have not been in a traditional learning environment for 18 months. There's been increased demands on our staff. We're having some poor and immature decision making. When you talk about the last time a 9th grader has been in full-time school being 7th grade, they missed some of the maturation process. So they may make more immature decisions that you may see in a middle school environment. And they haven't had the opportunity to learn from those. So we're seeing those at the high school this year. Social media and TikTok challenges. You know, certainly this is something that's out there we're aware of. We have made our staff aware of this, and we've also made our students aware that we will not tolerate any of these TikTok challenges within Halifax County High School. We're seeing increased instances of depression, anxiety, and anger. You know, students have been away from each other for a long period of time. We're also seeing academic challenges and frustration from that. They're behind. They need to catch up. There's more being asked of them. Ms. Long said earlier, we need 2 years of learning right now in 1 year. You start putting that kind of pressure on the backs of students and teachers, there's a lot of frustration there. And of course, our facility. We've talked about it for years at this point. The facility itself has a lot of places that students can hide or engage in unwanted activity, not limited to the high school, but of course our football stadium as well. It's very tough to manage. Some of the actions we're taking, trying to reestablish routines, and I think we've done a good job with that. The first few days are always difficult in that stairwell. I'd say it's probably been that way. I was there in 1993, 4, and 5, and the first few weeks of school, those stairwells were a mess. You know, it hasn't changed. Those stairwells are still the same. It's been duly noted a number of times, the challenges in those stairwells. But of course, our routines and teaching our students about the other stairwells and ways they can get to class has helped. Monitoring hallways during transitions. We're asking our teachers to wipe desks and monitor hallways. We're asking them to do more than ever, and they're answering that call, and they're doing it with a smile on their face every day. We're having morning administrative announcements, open communication with all our stakeholders, classroom meetings with administrators. We did a student orientation Zoom on 9/1. That was school-wide. Weekly Student Comment News program that began on 9/20. We've kicked off our SEL program. We held a senior class meeting on 9/30. We've started a peer mediation program with our mediators being trained on 10/5. We've held parent conferences on 10/5. We've had an update to our high school game ticket protocols and introduced a Comet Fan Code of Conduct, which took place on 10/6. We consistently meet with law enforcement. Weekly, our team has conversations with our school SRO, Mr. Edwin Cawthorn. I think you're supposed to move while I'm talking, right? And we've had meetings with the police department as well as the sheriff's office. And you see here on this chart I included, because this is always a popular question about the high school and safety and how often are we using metal detectors and things like that. So we do track that. You know, and this demonstrates the number of students per day. This is not only walking through the metal detector, but also a complete bag search. You know, so we've been doing those. Not shown here is activities and things like football games. We would typically scan every human being that comes inside of our football games. We have staff that is paid to come in and do that. You know, so that's something that we're also doing on a daily basis that ties up our staff. Other proactive things we've done, we've met with Ms. Kara Comer, that's the Court Service Unit Director for the 10th District. Our purpose in meeting with her was to get some feedback on any possible programs that may be out there to help with student behavior. It was also to make sure that she felt like we were pursuing criminal charges when it was appropriate. And in conversation with Ms. Comer, she did indicate that Halifax County High School and in general was doing a very good job with this, that cases that came to the court stuck, that we had done our homework and they were the right time to send a person. So with that, it's also times you shouldn't do it, and we had conversation about that, and also another representative from VDJJ, Ms. Tiffany Russell. So, and of course, I listed a website right there with virginiarules.org that is aligned with Virginia SOLs that teachers could choose to incorporate lessons on anything from bullying, drugs. It's a lot of different topics that are in there. We're looking at ways we can incorporate that into our daily lessons. Make sure I click. Suggestions for improvement are things that we think we need some help with to make our school better, because we all know no matter where we are, we can show improvement. I think it would be beneficial for our division to review and have a complete review of the student code of conduct. I think that there should be multiple representatives on there, and certainly I don't want to select those representatives, but I think it should be secondary, elementary, central, possibly parent and board member, and students could be involved in this complete review to make sure that our student code of conduct addresses the needs that we have as a community. I think we need a systematic approach for dispositions of violations of the student code of conduct that results in a recommendation for long-term suspension or expulsion. I think we need to work collaboratively with Ms. Hastings and her team and the secondary team to evaluate the alternative education program to see how we can improve there. Our assistant principals have asked for access to student history and IC, our Infinite Campus. The reason for this ask is that a lot of times if we're doing a threat assessment or something on a student, those are questions that have to be answered during the time of that threat assessment. Right now, there are a very limited number of people who have access to a student's history. I would be one of them, and of course, I'm not always available in the event of the need to research these. So, as Ms. Miller asked for, also administrative access to cameras, which we have, but also in every office, some type of screen to view that at all times so that we can be aware of what's going on. Right now, we have resource officer who is constantly on there, and we have secretarial staff who's constantly viewing cameras, and they do a really good job of notifying us where we may have an issue. But if we're there and we're working and we can glance up and something doesn't look right there, we probably can get there a little bit faster. I've asked for this a number of times, and I know it's difficult and a difficult ask, but we need cameras in that high school parking lot. You know, it is a very wide open area. It is very difficult to survey from the school. We do have cameras on there that can zoom out there, but they only get a fraction of the area. If we could any way possible do that, and I know that they're working on cameras at the stadium too, in the stadium parking area adjacent to the middle school. Direct administrative communication to the classrooms. The middle school has this, and this is one of the deficiencies in our building. Middle school teacher can call directly into an assistant principal's office. We don't have that at the high school, and we don't have the ability for the assistant principal to even call a student out of a classroom. And I don't know all the technicalities if this is even feasible or not, but it's a challenge, so it's a delay. If a teacher needs assistance and they're calling the main office. Well, then the main office has to find out what's going on, two-way radio out to an administrator, or a phone call that a teacher needs assistance and be whatever. So it's a delay. So the quicker we can manage those type things, we can be more proactive in helping the teacher. We can prevent things. And again, I have it in my office, but my office rarely handles day-to-day discipline. Assistant principals typically are handling those type of things, so it'd be nice if they had that. In addition, and this, I think Mr. Lloyd brought this up earlier about his school security officers. So you have school resource officers, and then you have school security officers. So school resource officers, like Mr. Cawthorn, works for South Boston Police Department. If we were able to employ school security officers, they then in turn work for us. So they could assist with things that typically an SR would not assist with, such as student parking lot and campus, metal detector uses, monitoring cameras in the building hall, and stairwell supervision, just to name a few. I didn't want to put too many on the list, but And I know that's a ask for money too, but some of these things on here probably cost us nothing. To probably the first 4 or 5 don't even involve money that we could do right off the bat. These are some of the things in our experience that we feel like would be helpful to managing an already great high school and making it even better. I would like to also mention that in my tenure at this school, that every fight that I can remember, and this goes back to the days when Mr. Randolph was there, I've been there a long time at this point, and every assault has been met with the stiffest punishment this administration can give. That's 10 days and a recommendation for long-term suspension. High school principals or their designee can only suspend a child for up to 10 days. Now, after that, it becomes up to the school board what happens to that child. So we've taken a very stern approach to the major offenses. At the same time, we've also wanted to work with our students. We wanted to send them to programs that help them learn to make better decisions. And I think by further developing our alternative education program, we can do more of that. It's always a balance. And you can go over here and say, we're going to suspend everybody who does this, or we're going to put them out. Graduation rates hanging out there, attendance is hanging out there. So it has to be a process. And we are fortunate that we have a great team at the high school of folks that have been there for a long time who understand the critical balance of when to do or take what action. These guys and ladies are well trained. They have been around. They understand our community. We have teachers who are well trained and understand when to get help. I think we can work on a few things, but I also think we do a lot of things right. And what we need is some of these supports from you guys to help us get even better at what we do. And of course, we want to thank you for the many things you already have done to support us. And we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Yes,
I guess before I start, I have a few questions or comments, but excuse me. Before I start, I want to commend both Mr. Lewis and Ms. Miller for their efforts this year. I know it's been difficult with, especially like you said, returning people who have not been in a building in 18 months. I've probably received, I can't countless calls this year with parents that are concerned about discipline matters. And the comments that I've heard, some of these comments come from teachers, they come from students, they come from parents, and they're related to the middle school and high school. I know that one of the general concerns that I hear is they're concerned that we don't even enforce, or we're not stricter on, more strict on the people in the hallways using vulgar or profane language. I would like to see us as a school system adopt, especially this year, again, because of the challenges that we're talking about, 18 months, a zero tolerance on some of these discipline issues. I heard what you said earlier. You said 94% of the population is doing well. Well, if that's the case, let's remove the 6% that's causing disruption. I hate to see 6% of the population create an environment of fear or intimidation for the other 94%. And circling back to what I said about the comments that are here about the vulgar and the profane language, I see the number on the discipline referrals, but if what the parents, the teachers, and the students are reporting, if it's accurate or even somewhat accurate, then that number of discipline referrals are probably low. I mean, it probably should be elevated to some extent. So what I'm suggesting is exactly what you concluded your presentation with, Mr. Lewis, in that I do think this is a true time, a time that we need a true partnership between the middle school, the high school, law enforcement, potentially the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the discipline here at panels, the full school board, and that we need to treat some of these matters seriously. You know, I've been at a few of the football games. I saw some of the videos of some of the fights. Some of these matters go beyond school issues. I mean, they're criminal matters. They're assault, there's vandalism, there's battery. I mean, you know, there are things that are beyond the school's scope. And at that point, that's why I said we need a good, solid partnership with law enforcement. I think we have that. I think we're using that. I was fortunate enough to be in that meeting in late September with the law enforcement, and I appreciated Sheriff Clark's comments, and I know Freddie Edmonds was on there as well, and I appreciated his feedback. But what I'm saying, I do think that at this time, again, because people have been out of a normal setting for 18 months, and because some of the incidents that we are having, I had the ability to see one of the fights that occurred in the stairwells at the high school where the two participants were literally tumbling down the stairs with another person trailing behind. I mean, that's something that could have been dangerous for so many people. Again, I would argue that's not a school matter. That, you know, at that point, you know, here it is, it's a criminal matter. If we had the same altercation across the road at Walmart, the person we've charged. Some of these issues where kids are ripping off the sinks off the wall or the paper towel dispensers. Again, if we did the same thing at Walmart, if we walked out of the restroom with a sink in our hand, we would be charged. So I think there's a time that we need to really work on this this partnership between all entities, all players. And I agree with what you said when you concluded, when you bring matters to us as the discipline committee, we need to have standardized sanctions, and we need to treat them seriously, and we need to remove disruptions from the school to protect the teachers who are there, who are employed there, to protect the students who are there who want to learn, and remove the disruptions from the building. So again, I want to commend you what you are doing, and I'm saying this not as criticism, but as a way to offer support from at least one member of the policy board, and I hope others will follow. But anything that we can do, and again, if that means stronger sanctions, it means a zero tolerance policy, I would be all for it. I would be 100% in agreement with it. But I would like for that to start with your minor offenses such as language, and we carry that all the way up to your major offenses, your fights or what have you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I've got a question for Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis, I talked to, I don't know how many parents, but anyway, this one parent, she went to the homecoming game, and she said she was so embarrassed of what went on at that homecoming game. We should have been prepared. I don't know why we wasn't. But she asked her daughter, she said, where did you feel safe, going through the rock concert or the homecoming game? She said she felt safer at the rock concert. That's a terrible statement for somebody to say that goes to this high school. I had another teacher. She taught for 19 years with the school system. She left. The reason she left was because of administration and the discipline policies. She said she could write up a student, send it up. Y'all send the student right back to class. There's something wrong there. We've got to change this. We've got to be more firm with discipline in that high school. Middle school, but most of my calls has been on the high school. My question to you, how do you handle an assault charge there at that high school? What are your protocols?
Right, you're asking me how we handle an assault charge. Our school resource officer would take care of an assault charge on a student. You know, the principal can choose to go over and fill out an affidavit as well, you know, if a school resource officer or another officer wasn't available to do that.
Okay, I know a student that was there in that high school that was assaulted. Phone was thrown, tore all the pieces. The school didn't do hardly anything. The young man was allowed to go to the homecoming game. you should have a no-fly zone to me. This child should be on a register there at that game and should not be allowed to attend that game. We had a lot of fights at homecoming. This young man was there.
That's incorrect. We had 0 fights at the homecoming game. We did have some disruptions. There were no fights, sir. No fights.
Okay, I'd like you to research that.
I was there.
I
was
think
there.
you're wrong.
There were no fights inside the stadium that night. There were disruptions.
Outside the stadium,
I'm unaware of any. I am aware of a drunken public outside the stadium, but I'm not aware of any fights that night outside the stadium. There were 4 disruptions to which law enforcement and school personnel were there and stopped those from being altercations.
so
I was there.
what was the outcome?
There were some suspensions and things like that that happened based on that. There was also a review of our policies and procedures. We put in place a code of conduct for our fans. We had over 12 officers there that night. The school resource officer and I held conversation about it being some problems there that night. And we requested both from South Boston and the sheriff's office extra support, and they were there. There were no fights inside that stadium. There was no knife found. I've heard these rumors. I was there. I was there for most of it. I'm a high school principal. I have just asked this board for more support in the way of school security officers or something to help with behavior.
And we will
That's
give
what
you-
I'm asking for.
We will give you that support, but that's just like these stairwells that you're talking about. If we knew this was a problem, why hadn't we addressed it? I don't understand. Why haven't we addressed this problem?
So, are you asking me why we haven't addressed the
Have you brought
stairwells?
it to the board's attention before this time?
I've probably been in 50 meetings about the high school stairwells and the facility itself and the stadium and many different things, sir. Surely has been brought to the attention of this community a number of times that not only our school needs addressing, whether it be a renovation or a rebuild, our stadium needs addressing, whether it be a renovation or a rebuild. It has certainly been brought to this community's attention a number of times.
So I guess the board is not doing that job then, because if you need this and there is a problem there, you know, the only way we're gonna solve it is get some cameras in these stairwells where we can see.
And I don't want it to be that I'm criticizing the board. I am not criticizing the board. I think the board has put some steps into action that potentially can help us. But this has been an ongoing conversation for years. Pretty much my entire tenure we have been talking about this. I have talked to former administration who saw similar challenges with this building and dating way back. You know, these challenges with inside this building are not new. You know, they have been there, they have been well documented, and it is time for our community to take action. And if that's part of the school board, as part of the board of supervisors, it is time for us to address this. Enclosed stairwells inside of schools are very difficult to manage. Very difficult to manage. We have cameras in there. I probably put in 5 or 6 miles a day along with these other folks in the high school addressing those needs. Looking in places that exist that you can literally sit up under places in that school. Like you have to get down and look. It is time for our community to address that. I have admitted readily tonight to you, we have challenges. When we have those challenges, I have told this board, we take stern action versus those. We have met with law enforcement, we have met with Department of Juvenile Justice to find out when it is appropriate to take out and pursue charges, when it's not. If you wish to discuss the case with the young man in the cell phone, I do not think public is the best place to do that. I can tell you exactly what we did in private with that student. I don't think right here is the best place for me to do that. But I'll be happy to address that with you. I have nothing to hide.
Ask a question.
Yes, sir.
And this is a comment for Dr. Lindenberg. Dr. Lindenberg, I'm listening to Mr. Lewis there, and I can tell, you know, he's passionate about it because I know he does it every day. Most people who work hard at the job, they are passionate about it, so I can appreciate that. So one of the things that I witnessed at football games, and just as an observer, I try to go to every game. We often have law enforcement there, but typically law enforcement's in that one end zone. I would like to see us as a school board offer to pay officers, you know, whatever the going rate may be, $100 a night, $150 a night, whatever we cap it at, for the extra pay to station them at each stairwell entrance or exit, so that we have them strategically placed, similar to what you would see at a college football game, where you have your state troopers or your police officer that are working, but you have better coverage of the stadium. Because I 100% agree with Mr. Lewis in that stadium, you know, it's old, it's outdated, the lighting is right there with it. So you have so many areas in that stadium where people can walk. It's dark, it's full of shadows and spots. And, you know, from an administrator or from law enforcement where they're currently stationed to get to some of these disturbances, you know, unfortunately, it takes time. And one day it's going to be time that we don't have. You know, we've been fortunate that hasn't happened as of yet. So I would like to see us have a plan in place, and if that requires that we pay the officers, so be it, we pay the officers. But let's strategically place them throughout the stadium so that, you know, one, is more of a deterrent, and two, that they're better able to respond in the event that we have one of these situations. So, I mean, that's one motion that I'm willing to make tonight, if need be, to get that in place. But, I mean, I think we do, and again, I hope my comments didn't come across as criticism. They're not meant as criticism. They're meant to say that we need to strengthen this partnership and all work together to get this under control and create a safe environment for all of our students.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Lewis, I just want to acknowledge that you and Ms. Miller at the middle school and high school do a fantastic job. Mr. Lord and Mr. Badal, I think you're exactly right, along with Mr. Lewis. We need to work together as a team, the whole community. I think one aspect that we all left out is that the parents need to share some responsibility.
Tell the truth.
That's where it stands. You know, a lot is expected from the school system, but more should be expected from the parents. You cannot send your child to school to get an education, and some kids is running wild when you're not teaching them what they need to be taught at home, and expect for the school system to teach them. I think the teachers already have their hands full, the administrator have their hands full. We all need to come together with a plan and work together instead of pointing fingers and criticizing. Mr. Lewis, you can't say it, but I can say it. Yes, we need a brand new school in Halifax County. That's part of the reason. We've been preaching this for a long time, but we need to put our personal agenda aside and listen to what people have been saying for years about the stairwells at the high school, the football stadium, and we need to put all our personal agenda aside, and we need to act as one. You want a lot, but you don't want to do anything but criticize and point fingers. Now, at their high school, there's about 1,400 kids at their high school on a daily basis. 1,400 kids. There's over 1,200 kids at the middle school on a daily basis. The town of Halifax is only 3.8 square miles. They got about 1,188 people in that population. But we got 1,400 kids inside a small 280 to 300,000 square foot building, and we expect nothing supposed to happen. Something's going to happen. This is the town of Halifax right here that is 3.8 square miles.
Yeah, say it again.
Residents, population is 1,188 people. Give a little bit, take a little bit, and they have crime every day, but we don't hear about it. Soon something happened at the high school, we pointing fingers. The only thing I'm saying is, whatever you do, you need to be consistent. You be consistent with it. Don't make no difference the doctor, the lawyer, the preacher, or whoever, son or daughter, using profanity, and you use excuse for it. When you said that you want to do something about it, be consistent. And I think this is what has caused a lot of problems in the past, is that if a certain individual do something, you run over to the school and you complain about, oh, he really a nice child, but then you do away with the yellow slip. You want to do away with yellow slip. But when Johnny Doe come over here, you don't know nothing about Johnny Doe and his parents. We need to enforce this rule. We need to do this. You need to be stricter. No, you need to be consistent. That's what you need to do. Now let's stop playing around and let's do what we need to do. Another thing, the teachers, the administrators at the high school, the middle school, the elementary school, they educators. They not a referee to stand between people and break up fights. That ain't what they with the school for. They educators. Law enforcement officers. Kids, parents, and the community don't have respect for law enforcement either. So if they don't have respect for the administrators, if they don't have respect for law enforcement, what makes you think they're going to have respect for the individual, the average individual? We can have 50 police officers at a game. They still going to fight, and you still going to complain.
That's right.
That's just a way of life. It's going to happen. But what you need to do is you eliminate those who causing the problem, and you just go on with your life. That's it. You do away with the ones who's causing the problem and get rid of them. But it's going to happen. Now, I know the sheriff's not here tonight, and the police chief is not here tonight, and I try to keep my professional separate from the school board. Between South Boston and the sheriff's office, we're about 16 police officers short. Do the math. About 16. They're in an academy. They're short. We just short. Face it. Now, if you combine the sheriff's office, combine South Boston Police Department, we're talking about 34,000 residents that we got to keep safe every day in this county. 34,000 residents. And we sitting up here talking about what's going inside, what happened inside of those four walls with 1,400. Like when 1 or 2 or 4% act up, you act like it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You just do what you're supposed to do. The school do what they're supposed to do. The law enforcement do what they're supposed to do. The court system do what they're supposed to do. Parents do what they're supposed to do.
Amen.
And trust me, we have a great result. But when we don't all work together, and when individuals fall short of their responsibility, they start pointing fingers. See, that's what happens when people don't do what they're supposed to do. They start pointing their finger and try to see who they can put the blame on. That's what they do. You point the finger when you don't do what you're supposed to do. This board has not done what we're supposed to do for the school system. Correct. We haven't. I don't think no one in this county, in the school system, can do everything they can do. We all fall short. But that's why we come to the table and we work together and don't point fingers at one another and see what can we do to improve. But I do remember the conversation that Mr. Lewis came last year, since I've been on this board for the last several years, that he had come each time and told us about that stairwells at the school, the football stadium, and we sit in here and we want to question Mr. Lewis about what do I want you to do and this and that. He's been telling us for the last several years, and there's right in front of us, and guess what we're doing? We can't even make up our mind whether we're going to build a school or whether we're going to remodel the school. But you're going to ask Mr. Lewis, well, why is this going on over here? He's been telling you for the last several years, the stairwells, it's a big issue. The football stadium is a big issue. And you keep on drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling him, and he already told you. I can speak for you, Mr. Lewis. I can speak for you, you know. But give him, the middle school, the teachers, the elementary school, some credit and respect. We just sit here and listen to all of these great professionals come up here and tell us what they've been doing and what's been going on in our school for the past 18 months and the challenges that lie ahead of us for the past 18 months. And now we expecting for them to be a referee and step between violent students who want to intervene and disrupt what's going on inside of the school. Now we want them to be a referee and stand in the middle of all of this. Well, they can only do the best they can. That's all. They can do what they can do. You know, the sheriff's office got a big challenge. They try to fill those positions. And what a lot of people don't realize is that I always had told citizens in the past that, and I'm not going to, don't take this the wrong way, I'm not knocking any one professional whatsoever or organization, but you cannot call a temporary service and say, send me 9 policemen tomorrow to be working for me. That ain't gonna happen.
That's right.
It ain't gonna happen. We don't have substitutes where you can call and say, hey, I need 10 substitute police officers tomorrow. That's not gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. It take over 16 to 18 months to get a police officer trained and get them to be riding by themselves. Now that's a long time. You talk about a year to a year and a half, that's a long time. By the time you get them trained, guess what happened? They quit and go somewhere else who's gonna pay them more money.
Yep.
Because you know why? Halifax County, just like a lot of other localities, now realize you have to come off of that money because these law enforcement officers, men and women who put their lives on the life each and every day, is professionals and they love what they do, and we've been underpaying them for so long. And now you need their service and you can't find them. That's what happened.
Teachers too.
And teachers, that's what happened. That's why it's so hard to find someone. You've been looking at the news. The city of Lynchburg have 30 openings for police officers. City of Danville have 23 openings for police officers. Every locality in the state of Virginia and the United States are looking for police officers. So why you think that someone want to come to South Boston when we don't want to pay someone to come here? And then we're going to be fussing about when they make decent money, oh, don't pay them this, they don't do this, they don't do that. Why would you come here? Why would you go and get all this training? And regardless, I don't care if I work here, I work in New York, I work in Philadelphia. Crime is crime any way you look at it. Because I don't care where you go, they're still going to dislike you.
That's right.
The majority of the ones who love you and respect you, it's going to be the ones that are not going to speak up when they need to speak up. The ones that's breaking the law and doing what they don't supposed to do, they're the ones that you're going to hear from. And say with everything that's wrong with the organization. The same thing with education. Same thing with discipline going on inside this community. It's going to happen. But I tell you how we can improve it. Let's support one another. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Stop worrying about taxes, because guess what? We're going to pay taxes to the day we die. We're going to pay it. Somebody got to pay these taxes. You know, stop thinking that you're going to take this money with you because you ain't going to take it with you. You was born without nothing, you're going to leave without nothing. You know? And that's all I have to say.
Amen, Freddie. Amen. Madam Chair.
Mr. Potts.
I was trying to think of what I could add to that, but what Freddie did was look at all my notes and start reading off what I was thinking.
Well, you don't have to say anything.
But that's that. But you know that ain't me. But you know that ain't me. So you know you saying that. And being the senior member on this here board, every time I come over here, I've been hearing about the doggone school. The stairway got this. The stairway got that. The kids having sex in the stairways. In case y'all ain't never heard that. That's what's been going on. I've been on this board 12, it'll be 16 years next year. I've been hearing this for 16 years. And we're still hearing it today. We've been hearing the kids cussing and acting a fool over there for 16 years. I have. And we're still talking about it today. Because what Fred has said, we haven't done. What we haven't done is put a program in effect that we will kick those kids in the head and get rid of that 4%. It's just, it's real easy. It's real easy. But it's no excuse for it. It's no excuse for these kids having bad manners. That's what it amounts. You need to add that as a program, Ms. Lewis. I didn't see that up there. Bad manner. Need to teach these kids some manners because obviously the mom and dad ain't teaching them nothing. And I'm saying it, I don't care who get mad. I really don't. Because that's exactly what's going on. I can't make no excuse for bad behavior. I'm too old for that. Bad behavior ought to have some consequences to it. If you gonna act the fool in our schools, we're gonna make sure you act the fool no more there. We're gonna put your tail out, let you stay out until you act like you got some sense. Then we might let you come back.
And educate the 90%.
And educate the 90%. That's all we can do. So we can't get here and say, well, they doing this to this one and they doing. Freddie said Lewis, Don, we got to be fair and consistent. What have I said on this board for the last 16 years? We got to be fair and consistent. So we can't pick and choose who we're going to be fair and consistent to. We got to be fair and consistent to everybody. And that goes to discipline. Because to just walk down through that hall, and I hear kids cussing like they out. I don't know any sailors, but they be saying they cussing like sailors. And I know they do, because I'm walking through the halls.
But we have to show them.
But you can't show them if you don't teach them.
Yeah.
See, you can't get mad at them because, folks, I'm telling you, they haven't been taught. If they've been, I know all of y'all done taught yours, because they not part of that 4%. But that 4% has got to be taken care of. If you don't take care of them, they're going to disrupt the whole thing. And we're not going to shut down the whole school system because 4% going to act the fool.
Well,
Not today. Huh?
Mr. Potts, we're hoping, I'm looking back at Ms. Hastings right now, we're hoping to get the alternative school setting in a more appropriate fashion so that those 4% can be offered that, and if they can't even do that,
Well,
then they need to be gone.
And Madam Chair, and if they don't put some doggone training in there about how to be kids around adults, how to be a kid around somebody that's older than they are, if they ain't got that in their program, they kiss their program goodbye because it ain't worth the paper you putting on there, because you got to give them some basic training on how to act. And you think that ain't what's happening, you must be wrong, because, you know, and I can't accept the fact, and I tell you, Mr. Lewis, I can't accept it. We've been out of school for 2 years. Oh, they so bad off. I'm sorry. Bad behavior don't make no kid act a fool. Excuse me. Bad behavior makes a kid act a fool. Been out of school for 2 years, don't make them act a fool. So because they've been out, sure they got all these anxiety, but they had them anxiety problems when we were in there. Now they done calmed them down, but they done got worse now because of COVID. And that's what's going on, folks. Stop making excuses for the kids, because that's what y'all doing. You're making excuses for the kids.
Okay, Mr. Potts.
I'm through.
Okay.
Let's move on.
All right, Mr. Lewis, we thank you. Are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night. Mike, did we kick GW?
We were losing. They actually suspended the game due to the injury, so
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I'm
follow
sorry.
up on that and see what I can
Yeah.
find there.
Well, we'll take care of that, sir.
Please give us an update, Mr. Lewis. Oh, I lost the agenda.
Mrs. Slayball,
Good evening.
good evening.
I will try to be brief.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, so health metrics, October, the percent positivity for the Southside region, which are in the 3 counties, is 10.2. It was 12.2 at the last.
Mrs. Slayball, can you just wait 1 minute?
Okay.
We skipped something?
Well,
Okay.
I did have one question. I mean, I was just talking to Mr. Potts on the side here. You know, we discussed a second ago about, do we need to do anything to bolster the security at the football games? You know,
See, we have to, that's a new item on the agenda, so we
Right.
have to wait
No,
and add that on the new item. What is that?
that's part of the student behavior.
I know, but that's.
But it's gonna have to come on
it
the
has
new
to come
business.
under
We
new
can't do it
business,
right
like we
there.
told
Right.
Mr. McDowell.
It's
He
not-
said it would be appropriate. Yeah,
I'm making a motion.
Discuss it under new business.
yeah,
Right.
Okay,
New business.
yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
okay. Thank you.
Miss,
Okay,
Yeah, right.
thank you.
Mrs. Slayball?
Okay. The Halifax percent positivity is 16.5. At the last meeting, it was 11.9. We're still in high transmission. There were 28 cases reported in the last 24 hours. We've had a total of 151 student and employee cases since the first day of school, and a few of those were added today. I did this around 9 this morning, so I think we're at
155 now. We have 9 employees out on isolation or quarantine and 259 students out. So this is not part of the presentation, and I hadn't planned to do this, but since it was brought up, we'll talk about contact tracing. So when a parent notifies us or guardian notifies us that a child is positive, or a teacher tells us they are positive, then we ask them questions first. The questions are, when did you start showing symptoms? When did you have your test? Was it a rapid? Was it a send-off? Questions like that. And then we look at the school day. So I'll give you an example of an elementary student. We look at transportation. Are they a bus rider? Are they a car rider? That sometimes is difficult because people with split households, some days of the week they go with mama, they a car rider, they go with daddy, they a bus rider. On Fridays they go with grandma. So we have to figure out all that, what buses they ride. Transportation is great with providing us. I talk to them, I feel like every day. Seating charts for the buses. We have had principals go over and actually review video from the buses to see where that child was at on the bus, were they in their seat, who was sitting around them, how long they were on the bus. Transportation has been great pulling videos for us. So then we start looking at, where did they eat breakfast at? Did they eat breakfast in the classroom? Did they eat breakfast in the cafeteria? If they went in the cafeteria, then the principals can pull video from the cafeteria to see who eats around them. We pull out the tape measure. Kevin Neal and I have measured the cafeteria. We have measured classrooms. We have measured buses. We do our due diligence to not put students out unless they absolutely have to. The regulation is 3 feet with the mask, 6 feet without the mask. For elementary students, then we go to the classroom. What does the classroom look like? Like Ms. Long said, small group instruction. Who are they with in their small group instruction? What specials do they have? Art, music, library. We look at seating charts from art, music, library. Like I said, lunch, then school dismissal. If it's a secondary student, then we look at athletics, extracurriculars, any clubs that they're in. And then for secondary, you have to multiply kind of that by 6 or 7, how many periods at the middle school, and 4 for the high school, because we look at seating charts for everywhere that child goes for that day. The high school is another challenge because who rides with who to school in the morning. So we do our due diligence as much as possible. We speak to the parent, we speak to the teachers, we speak to everybody that can give us information, and we do not put out children unless we feel like they have been exposed. It doesn't matter if they were exposed on the bus or in the classroom. They were determined less than 3 feet for more than 15 minutes. And that is what we go by. If they have their mask off, it's less than 6 feet. And those are the children that are exposed. They're exposed either way, no matter where they were exposed at. Did that answer questions?
I haven't seen it lately. Madam Chair, just one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what the vaccination rate is for Halifax County now?
It was 40 for not adults, for the whole population. It was 47.6.
Oh, so we still got a ways to go. Because I think they probably bring it from home.
We have had a few transmission in school, but the majority of it comes from outside of the school system. And I'm not, like Dr. Lindisberg said, we're not perfect. There is some in-school transmission, but there's a lot of out-of-school transmission too. And we did have a challenge at one of our smaller elementary schools, and we discussed with the health department whether that school needed to have a brief pause, and the health department felt that the children were still safer at school than being put out of school for a couple of days.
Say it again.
So we had a challenge at one of our small elementary schools where we had a lot of cases in a short amount of time. And we did discuss with the health department the possibility of doing a short-term pause, and they still felt it was better those children stay in school, not the ones exposed or positive, but the rest of the students stay in school because they were safer in the school building than they were in the community. The thought is if you were to close school on their end, that they would go to each other's houses to stay. The mitigation strategies wouldn't be in place at those houses. It would make it more difficult on the parents to find sitting services for those children.
And I didn't tell you to say this either now. I didn't tell you to say this, so don't nobody get mad at her, but she's right. Those kids are safer in the school than in their own darn community. Did y'all hear? Make sure y'all, it needs to sink into y'all's head.
Yeah.
Because they safer in the schools than they are in your community.
We got it.
Now, maybe y'all understand that. 40-some% is all we got in this county out of 100%. That means 60% of the people running around here, whatever,
Affecting other folks.
infecting the other folk, and we wondering why.
We can't do anything about that. We just try to
Do you,
mitigate at school.
That's it. That's all we can do.
We can just control what happens during the school day. That's right.
We need a
Ms.
big
Laidlaw,
bubble right over our school. That's all we do.
do you know the transmission rate at school? Do you have that percentage by any chance?
It was 6 different incidents where it was transmitted, and of course, that's not 100% either. I mean, that's just, it was
I'm just
nowhere
curious.
else for the child to have tested positive other than school. So it was about 6 different cases where we had the source case who tested positive, and we put 1 through 5 children on quarantine, and then child 1 out of that tested positive. And we did have a situation where several children out of that group that was quarantined tested positive.
Well, I know
And-
it wasn't that long ago where we had no transmissions. That's why I was asking that question.
The last school board meeting, we
Okay.
were at 0 transmission.
Okay.
That's right.
And that's still good.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Laidlaw.
Thank you. You all have a good night.
You too.
Next item on the agenda is the unfinished business. We'll begin with Dr. Lindberg in compensation, high school and elementary schools.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have just 2 memos in there and one announcement is, Ms. Fraley, Mr. Camp and I had 2x2 with Mr. Pennell and Mr. Ricketts earlier in the week, and we have 2 dates for coming up with our colleagues from the Board of Supervisors on November the 10th. You got an email, I think, Robin, you sent an email out to everybody? November the 10th, we have Joint Facility Committee meeting here at 2 o'clock on November the 10th. And then we'll postpone the August 26th meeting with the Board of Supervisors to November the 18th. Okay?
The what now?
Okay,
The
so
October
we will-
26th.
The October 26th board meeting with the joint board meeting with the Board of Supervisors, we'll move to November the 18th. At that time, we need to be ready to make some, decisions, I believe.
Who canceled that meeting?
November the 18th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who canceled that 26th meeting?
We did, because we had the meeting at Meadville Elementary School on
the
October
same night.
28th. And the board's motion at the last meeting was to talk about the elementaries at the November the 8th meeting. And so that was,
So that's the 10th, right?
so the 10th, we have a joint facility meeting. November the 8th, you have a school board meeting. November the 10th, we have a joint facility meeting, and November the 18th, you have a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors. That'll be at Halifax County High School.
Oh, at the high school?
Yes.
Okay.
What time?
6:30.
Okay.
So just briefly here, one of the things, we talked about compensation, and I've heard it several times tonight, and I pulled the wrong memo up. If you pull that back up, the compensation one, I pulled the wrong memo up here. One of the concerns that we constantly hear about in compensation is fixing the middle. And so when you look at the salary scale, if we implement the salary scale, which you've approved unanimously, I just pulled up the 15-year salary schedule and the impact it would make for an individual. And so if you had the current scale versus the proposed scale versus the annual, and you just take it 15 years, and if the community continues to implement the salary scale, that's a $105,000 difference in the lifetime for an employee. I mean, that is significant. And then if you look at the bottom one, so I said, okay, so you get to 30 years at the end. If you get the average highest pay is based on your final 36 months to your Virginia retirement incentive system. So if you take, it would either be at $53,000 or $64,000. When you get 51% of that, when you retire at 30 years, full vesting, because all these folks will be Plan 1 retirement. Okay, so that would be another $5,500 a month for them for the rest of their life until they pass away. Okay, I mean, if you want to make an impact for the employees. Okay, we've heard two things, like one is make an impact for students, fix high school. If you want to make an impact for employees, implement the salary scale. I mean, that is a game changer for every employee that we have if we can do that. I mean, I think that's significant, and I think the reason that I pulled that is after we had our joint facility meeting the other day, a couple weeks ago, I started thinking about the importance of compensation. How can you demonstrate this? And this is a simple way to demonstrate current scale, proposed scale, and then the annual increase. That is significant. It is significant. Now, it's up to not only this board to get, we got to get this to the finish line, then boards in the future got to continue to implement the steps. Yep. That's exactly right. But it has potential to really make a difference. The second memo that I have for you is just Bob. I've had a lot of questions about mid-year implementation of it, and can we do it? Yes, I think we can do that. But it would be, we got to work with our colleagues from the Board of Supervisors to get it done. If we did it, it would cost salary increase for teachers and support staff is about $809,000. You have that there as well, in what it would cost. I mean, you have end of the year or that capital carryover, we could back into it, and there's some ways. We just, I think we've got to continue to work with our colleagues from the Board of Supervisors to see if we can get there, but can we do it? Yes, once you do that, you're committed to it. You're committed to it. You're committed to it forever, which I would say, yes, well, that would be a good thing to do. So those are the two things, just informational right there more than anything else, just information, no action at all, just information that I think you've asked about.
Madam Chair, so basically what you're saying, Doc, is that we've already approved this, right?
Yes, I mean, the board has unanimously
So all we need
approved
to do
it.
now is wait for what?
So the Board of Supervisors. So the Board of Supervisors, and Mr. Camp and Ms. Fay and I met with Ms. They would like to have a comprehensive plan. I don't know if they got to have everything sealed down 100%, but they want high school compensation
And we've cut
in
everything
general.
we can cut and helped every way we can help.
We have, and I'll say this, Mr. Potts. I mean, they have been very congenial and very supportive in the last few months, and I mean, the conversation has been detailed, robust, and I mean, I'm just perpetually optimistic, and I think we can come get to the finish line on a couple of these things. I do too.
All right. Is that it, Dr. Lindbergh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, the next item on the list is new business.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Being aware of two potential additions to the agenda, I'd just like to advise both Mr. McDowell and Mr. Lloyd what they'd be looking at. First, Mr. McDowell, you need to ask the board to add to the agenda a discussion of paying employees that are exposed to COVID. You'll need a second, and you'll need a 2/3 majority or 5 members to vote. If you do not get the 5 votes, you ask the chair to add it to the November agenda. And then, of course, it'll go on the agenda with your name, and then you'll make a presentation. A motion, again, would need a second, and you'd need 4 to pass it, okay? Roy Keith, pretty much the same story. You'll ask a point of order to the chair to add football game security under new business. It would then go, if it, you'd need a second and a 2/3 majority to pass it. If it fails, you ask that they add it to the November agenda. I saw a look in your eye when you tried to do this during the reports, and you said, what was the difference, basically? The last time we did that, it was under, I believe it was old business. Okay. And then you could vote on it, but during reports, it's a matter of advice and consent, and you usually don't take votes on that action.
Thank you, Mr. Law.
So, Madam Fraley, you can continue.
All right. Mr. Ayler. Budget timeline.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Lindenberg. This is typical. We're getting geared up for the FY 22-23 budget process, and this is the beginning step is the budget timeline. You have before you, we anticipate December the 17th to get the governor's budget information. We will do a budget overview on January the 10th of 2022 with the school board. It's recommended on February the 14th, we have a public input hearing. Review it again on March the 14th, which is a regular school board meeting. The Board of Supervisors will actually have a public hearing on the county and school budgets on March. I don't know the exact date at this time. And then we'll have recommending a special meeting on March the 28th, 2022 to final the budget and submit to the Board of Supervisors by March 30th. I ask if you have any questions regarding to the time frame.
Any questions?
I need to get your personal opinion on this, and this in the form of a question. If we were to, anything that we do under those URSA 1, 2, and 3 funds, and we do this and we do that and we do this here, where the money gonna come from after the URSA money is gone?
Well, actually, ESSER 1 expires September 30th, 2022.
Okay.
The ESSER 2 is September 20th, 2023.
Okay.
September 2024 is ESSER 3.
Okay.
There's also discussion on the table for some additional funding coming. We don't have enough information on that to share at this point.
Must be spent by 2024.
Oh yeah, we gotta spend it. I know that, but I'm talking about where how we're gonna replace it.
That's ESSER 3 is 2024.
Yeah.
Right. So 24, right before the election, ain't that nice?
Madam Chair, I'd like to put a motion on the floor to accept the budget timeline presented by Ms. Vsva.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed say no.
Thank you.
Motion is carried. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to have this put under new business for the 10-day pay for employees that contract COVID.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could,
Mr. Chair, let's have the discussion after we get the motion. I think this is just to add it to the agenda.
Okay, okay. Okay.
No, it's just to add it to the
This is
agenda.
just to add it to the agenda.
I'm sorry.
We'll
All
have
right.
the discussion later.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed say no. Motion is carried. Okay? All right.
Now make your motion, since it's on the agenda, you make the motion. I think it would be good to state that you're looking to get employees who have to do contact tracing or exposed to COVID, however you want to say it, be compensated up to 10 days, and the money comes from wherever, instead of ESSER funds, or COVID relief funds would be a simple way to put it.
I'd like to make a motion to have this proposal put on for the employees to be paid up to 10 days if they contact COVID within the school system.
Have a second?
I need some clarity on your motion. Okay, are you saying that if they have days, they use the 10 days, or they don't use any of their leave at all?
Well, they can use their days if they need them, but if somebody is out that has contracted COVID within the school system, and it comes from a child or whatever, within the school system, we pay them up to 10 days.
if they don't have any leave?
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you.
Point of order, is that really what you want?
That's what you wanted?
That if they
Madam
don't
Chair.
have leave, you just, or do you just want it that
We
they're?
don't,
Madam
we
Chair.
don't want to dock our teachers or any of our employees of their time. If it shows that they contracted it within the school system, they will be paid. But if you take a teacher that says she needs more time, then she has to use her personal leave after the 10 days or sick days.
Oh, that's
That's,
what you're saying. Okay.
So just as a point of clarity, so if a person's on quarantine but they're not positive, they wouldn't be covered under that? And I was asking because I thought earlier the concern was if they were quarantined in general, but I know you said if they were positive.
no, if they were quarantined from the school system for 10 days, we will pay them up to 10 days.
So they won't have to use vacation time?
No, no.
So we should probably,
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we got to put some clarity in there.
Yeah, we're gonna need to make sure that we're clear what we're voting on before we go any further.
Okay, Madam Chair, Dr. Lindenberg, members of the board, at the beginning of this school year, we had nothing in place for our employees. And you remember last year we had the Family First Coronavirus Act, and it expired in December of 2020, right? And then we came to the board in January and asked you to extend that Family First Coronavirus Act. What it did, the item that we wanted you to extend was the item where it did allow all employees 10 COVID days if they're out, if they had the virus or quarantine, 10 days for anyone. That's what it allowed.
Okay.
And then from after the 10 days, of course, you know, you would have to use your own sick leave or whatever, or be docked. So maybe that's what Mr. McDowell, I'm not sure, is asking for this year. And how we came up with what we have in place, many school divisions, not only Region 8, but other school divisions, at the beginning of the year, no one knew what they were doing. So I'm not saying they didn't know what they were doing, but there were questions. There were questions. What are you going to do? We don't have Family First Coronavirus anymore, that act anymore. And so through emails, various school divisions, the question was, what are you going to do? So everybody gave what they thought they were going to do. Many divisions weren't doing anything. So we decided to try to put something in place to help our employees. And what we put in place certainly something for vaccinated and unvaccinated. We put in place for the vaccinated employees, if you did get the coronavirus on the job or some type of on-the-job exposure, you know, that, and you had to be quarantined, that you would be given those 10 days that the Family First Act provided last year. So, and for the unvaccinated people, because we were encouraging people to be vaccinated, we were saying that if you were unvaccinated, you would have to use your own days, your own leave earned days. We were thinking, you know, of course, is this okay? Are we discriminating? Craig, you know, we certainly contacted our attorney. He said no. He said because you're providing something for all employees. You're providing for the vaccinated employees, COVID days if needed. Chances are they wouldn't need it. I mean, not as many. We know that vaccinated people can't come down with the virus. And so for the unvaccinated, he said because they're not sick and they're being quarantined, you're allowing them to use their sick leave and personal leave. So that is what we had in place in lieu of the Family First Coronavirus Act, which provided 10 COVID days for all of our employees. And maybe that's what Mr. McDowell wants us to go back to, the 10 days for all employees.
Still in effect, isn't it?
No.
That's what you're saying?
No, we don't have that in effect, no.
It's still 10 days whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated.
No, it's not. No, what we have in place now, we have 10 COVID days for vaccinated people. That's it, encouraging people to become vaccinated. Unvaccinated individuals have to use their leave, their earned leave, their earned sick leave.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mr. McDowell, I'm assuming that you want us to try to go back to something like the Family First Coronavirus Act that provided 10 days for all of our employees. And of course, you're putting on the job, you know, if they were exposed on the job, that's why they have to be quarantined or coming in with the virus, providing the 10 days. Is that what you're asking us to look at again?
I can read this to you. You know, I moved to pay any employee quarantined medical personnel within or outside of the school system, regardless of vaccination status, be paid for 10 days one time.
That said, I disagree with that because I'm not.
Okay, we're not at that point where we discuss.
That ain't what he said.
All I'm saying, Mr. Ponce, is we've got to.
I know what you're saying, but what he said, that's not what he said just a while ago.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, we're at the point where he's made a motion. Is there a second is where we're at.
You making the motion now?
Yes.
That's what he just did.
All right.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, now, open the floor.
Okay. All those in favor?
No, ma'am.
No,
No, ma'am. I like a roll call vote, please.
Discussion?
Discussion.
Discussion.
Okay.
I just objected to it because that's not what he said initially.
I'm not saying that.
I know you're not. I'm just
I'm just
letting
trying to.
letting everybody know that this is not what he's saying because we said we were gonna not do that. So what we're saying now, what we're saying is that you got vaccination, we're gonna give you the $10. We're gonna give you the 10 days, right?
Mr. Potts, we're at a point now where he's made a motion.
And we finna have discussion.
We've got a second. So I just never heard her say, we're open for discussion.
Excuse me.
I did.
Okay.
She
I did.
You didn't hear what she said.
Can we restate that
Do
motion?
we need to take the first one he made off the floor? Because it was second also.
It was never seconded, I don't think.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
First one.
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
Can you restate that? Can I ask that to be restated?
Do you want to use this?
Yeah.
Okay, it's down here.
Let him stay.
Just read that off, Lord, be fine.
Okay. The motion is to pay any employee quarantined upon recommendation from a medical personnel within or outside of the school system, regardless of vaccination status, be paid 10 days one time from COVID relief funds.
Okay. Is there a second? You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now do we have discussion? Open for discussion.
If I'm not mistaken, that said outside the personnel. I heard it wrong the first time, but I got it corrected that time. Thanks for reading that. Is that we're saying that somebody else can say that this guy, this lady, or this man got infected outside of the school system, and we're gonna pay for it.
No, medical personnel.
Oh, the doctor.
Oh, a doctor outside the school.
Outside, but why have we been doing that?
I think it's typical that a doctor makes a diagnosis for it. That's not.
So that's after contact tracing and all?
Typical is the employee reports it to a nurse, and that they tested positive or whatever it may be, and then we go from there.
So I guess
yeah.
my only,
But she doesn't test, does she? No. Oh, okay. They have to get
Now
outside
now
test.
we're in the process of getting a
Yeah,
testing
but
program.
They have to get outside test.
Okay.
Let's vote.
Is there any more
So-
discussion?
yeah, I guess my question would be for Ms. Hall or Dr. Lindenberg. So I guess at that point, you no longer can incentivize employees to be vaccinated. I mean, that's the point of what we have now.
Yeah, right.
That's the way I understand it, would be to incentivize them to be vaccinated.
Yeah,
So you lose that function, basically.
right. That's correct. That's all he's saying. Ready to vote?
Okay. Mr. Potts, you asked for a roll call vote?
Yep.
Roll call vote, please.
District 1, Ms. Fraley.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Can you come back to me? Can I go,
Chicken.
yeah, can I think for a second?
Let him think.
Is that okay? Would you have to go in order? Yes, please.
District 3, Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Kemp.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts.
You're right. I have a question.
You got to vote.
No, I can ask a question.
Oh, okay.
What if they get this twice?
They said one time.
One time. So the next time they get it, they just out of luck. Okay.
We have a sick bank too, don't we still do? We do a sick bank if they have, if they get down and out.
Huh?
After the one time.
If they're a member. If they're a member of the sick bank, they can withdraw from there.
That makes me rub my head.
Pass. Go. I pass. I'll vote for it. Yes, madam.
Yes.
Unanimous, let's move on.
Yes. Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Can I add to under new business, line item for
Can't even celebrate that.
football
Okay.
game security?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I just had to say, that's a celebration. We came together for that vote, thank God. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Lloyd, I'm sorry.
I was just asking if we could add football game security, under new business, and then I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So, need a second?
Need a second?
Second.
Need a second? Did I get it? Okay, all right. And all those in, no, I meant, any discussion? No. All those in favor say yes,
Yes.
and all those opposed?
roll call, please.
We just adding it to
We're
the.
just adding it to the agenda.
Yes, yes, add.
Okay.
Excuse me. Can't you call a roll call vote?
Certainly,
just to add something to
certainly,
it?
certainly. You can,
That's what I thought. Okay.
you certainly can.
Okay, let's do a roll call on this. Yes.
Yes,
That's added to the agenda, right?
yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes.
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 Since I seconded, I gotta say yes.
Get out of here.
Okay, make your motion, now.
Okay.
All right.
I would like to move that we allocate funds to pay law enforcement officers at a rate to be determined by, I would say, I don't know what the appropriate rate would be, but determined by the superintendent and the high school administration to allow law enforcement to serve as security at the football games as needed. So the number of, let me clean that up. Okay, I'll make a motion that we employ law enforcement personnel at the football games for additional security for a rate and the number of officers to be determined by the superintendent and the high school on a per game basis. And
The
after,
number and the rate be determined.
yes, and I'll clarify that afterwards, or I can explain now. So the thinking would be, you know, some games, obviously, you may need more security than others.
Exactly.
Such
I'm
as
with
like the
you. I'm with
GW game, which we had to move to a Saturday versus a game at the end of the year if we were 0-10 or whatever we may be, or you may not have a crowd there. So that's the thinking.
I think even if it's a day game, you don't use as many, don't you? Would you be in agreement? Only they come out at night.
Sir, Mr.
We're not talking about the freak, baby. We're talking about crooks.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean.
point of order, please.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
We need to have a second to the motion, and then we'll begin discussion.
Okay.
Is there
Is
a
it second? And we have discussion.
McDowell. Yes. No. Let's just put it on
Would you have any discussion?
there. Roll call.
No, we discussion.
Any discussion at this point?
And
Okay, oh, well, let's
Okay.
vote then, huh?
Let's vote. Roll call vote. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes. Just put it on the agenda, right?
No, it's a vote.
That wouldn't put it on?
No.
Oh, well, that's fine, that's fine. I didn't understand that. I still got a question before I vote. So don't put that down yet.
Taking you too long for the question?
No, I'm trying to be nice about saying this, and it's hard. Because we're talking about paying them, because in the past, they've been all paid by the sheriff's department or by the city police.
Right.
So, we gonna stop, should we pay them an extra amount other than what they being paid? Or we gonna take on the whole responsibility?
That's gonna be determined.
Well, the reason I recommend that we pay them would be if you pay them, then you can better stipulate placement of security. When they're over there volunteering their own time, then it's hard to stipulate that you cover the entire area or you do anything like that. But if, at the point, if you offer to pay, at that point, you can better stipulate placement of the security.
Well, aren't they, told by the sheriff they got to be over there, the chief?
I think they're all volunteers at this point.
That's all volunteer? Is that what they are, Freddie?
That's my understanding.
Are they all volunteers?
So what now?
Are the officers gonna be volunteers, are they gonna be over there for free is what we're saying?
Yeah, they're volunteer now,
The
basically.
volunteers now.
Well, they don't volunteer. What happening now is that money comes from out of the town or South Boston budget and the sheriff office budget. So they're getting paid, but it's coming out of their general budget.
Okay. So we would.
So you're
that
asking
has
for
to be
us to pay?
I'm asking to pay, a set amount. And again, in the discussion we had in security, I mean, I don't mind saying at the meeting, we mentioned maybe $100 to $150. Thinking that it's about a 3-hour commitment, 4-hour commitment, depending on the time slot. That's kind of what we had mentioned during the meeting that day.
So what you're saying is if the sheriff department, if they're putting, say, 4 police officers, we want to double that. Is that what you're saying, or whatever they feel
No,
it's
that ain't
needed?
what he's saying.
I'm
No.
saying whatever number of officers, let's just say Dr. Lindenberg thinks we need 7 that night, irregardless of what the town or the sheriff's department, whatever they do, we offer whatever that supplement is, or to complement $100 or $150 to.
Okay. Are we waiting for Mr. Potts' vote? Okay.
Let them work that out. Work that out with the
Let who
sheriff.
work it out?
Work it out with the sheriff's department, Mr. Lewis, Dr. Mark, or whatever. I guess that would be your responsibility, Mr. Lewis? Okay.
I can work with those two
Okay.
organizations.
All right.
Waiting for Mr.
We
Potts.
already voted, waiting for him to.
Because we weren't all clear. I vote aye.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye, man.
All right, motion is carried.
Name. What you call it, thing?
Okay.
We wait for the time.
All right.
That's small.
Yeah.
I need a motion to go into closed session.
Pursuant to section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of considering the following specific matters: personnel, the appointment, resignation, salaries, and performance of specific division employees as authorized by section 2.23711.1 of the Code of Virginia, and contracts, the discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body is authorized by section 2.23711.29 of the Code of Virginia.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? Closed session.
The legs here a little bit.